Good day, lovely viewers. Welcome to Cross Naruto. We have an exciting story lined up for you today. What if Naruto was the primordial shadow monarch, the true king who preceded Ashborn? Naruto x Hae-In x Esil. Your engagement means the world to us. Like, comment, and subscribe to help us grow and bring you more amazing content. Without wasting any time, let's start. Chapter 1, Awakening Shadows. Naruto crouched on the massive oak branch, his Jonin vest barely making a sound as he shifted position. The forest sprawled beneath him, a sea of green under the morning sun. At 19, he still had that wild blonde hair, but his face had sharpened, lost some of that roundness from his genin days. The whisker marks on his cheeks seemed darker against tan skin. Anything yet? Shikamaru's voice crackled through his earpiece. Nothing. Just trees and more trees. Naruto tapped the communicator. This is supposed to be a simple recon mission. Some farmers reported strange noises and missing livestock. Probably just bandits. Probably, Shikamaru agreed, but something in his tone suggested otherwise. Still, Lady Tsunade wouldn't send us if it was just bandits. Naruto grinned. Maybe she wanted to get me out of her hair for a while. You did put salt in her sake last week. Worth it. A flash of movement caught Naruto's eye, something dark shifting between trees about half a kilometer east. Not bandits. Bandits didn't move like that, like shadows flowing rather than people walking. I'm checking something out, Naruto said, already in motion. Coordinates 35 east, 12 north. Be careful, Shikamaru replied. Sakura and I are 15 minutes away if you need backup. Naruto leapt through the trees, his chakra control precise enough that he barely disturbed the leaves. The strange movement had stopped, but something pulled him forward anyway, a feeling, an instinct he couldn't explain. The forest thinned as he approached a small clearing. And there, hanging in the air like a tear in reality itself, was something that shouldn't exist. What the hell? Naruto whispered, dropping to the ground. It looked like a doorway made of swirling darkness, about 3 meters tall and 2 wide. The edges pulsed with a blue-black energy that made his skin crawl. He'd never seen anything like it on any mission, never read about anything similar in any scroll. Guys, he said into the communicator, you need to see this. There's some kind of gate. Portal. I don't know what it is. Static answered him. Shikamaru. Sakura. More static. Great. Whatever this thing was, it was interfering with communications. The sensible thing would be to wait for backup. The Naruto thing to do was to investigate immediately. He created a shadow clone with a hand sign. Go find the others, he told his duplicate. Bring them here. The clone nodded and took off. Naruto approached the gate cautiously, kunai in hand. The air around it felt heavy, charged with something that wasn't quite chakra, denser, older somehow. A sound emerged from the gate, a chittering, scraping noise that raised the hair on his arms. Then something lurched through. It wasn't human. It wasn't even an animal from this world. The creature stood on 6 legs, its body covered in plates that looked like black glass. Where its face should be, there was only a jagged crack glowing with the same blue-black energy as the gate. What the hell are you? Naruto muttered, shifting into a fighting stance. The creature's head swiveled toward him, that glowing crack widening. It moved with impossible speed, covering the distance between them in a heartbeat. Naruto barely had time to dodge, the creature's clawed limb slicing through his sleeve. He flipped backward, creating distance, and formed his signature hand sign. Shadow Clone Jutsu. 5 clones appeared around him. 2 charged the creature while the others flanked it. The beast shredded the first clone instantly, its limb passing through the clone's chest before it could even land a hit. The second clone managed to drive a kunai into a joint between the creature's plates before being dispatched. Rasengan. Naruto shouted, driving the swirling chakra ball into the creature's side with the help of a clone. The monster shrieked as the attack connected, sending it crashing into a tree. For a moment, Naruto thought he'd won. Then the creature stood, the damage from the Rasengan already closing like liquid glass re-solidifying. "You've gotta be kidding me," he groaned. The gate pulsed, and 3 more creatures emerged, identical to the first. Naruto backed up. This was beyond a standard mission now. 4 of these things, each immune to his Rasengan. He needed to retreat, to warn the village. He turned to run, and saw Sakura and Shikamaru entering the clearing, his clone right behind them. "Don't get close," he shouted. "These things aren't normal." Too late. The creatures sensed the newcomers and charged. One leapt at Sakura, who met it with a chakra-enhanced punch that shattered its front limbs. Another went for Shikamaru, who caught it in his shadow possession jutsu but was visibly straining to hold it. "My shadow can barely grip it," Shikamaru grunted. "It's like trying to catch smoke." The 4th creature circled around, going for Naruto's clone. As the original, Naruto faced off against the first monster again. "We need to retreat," Sakura called, dodging another attack. "We don't know what these are." She was right. But as the creature lunged at him again, something strange happened. Time seemed to slow. A voice, ancient, powerful, familiar yet completely unknown, whispered in Naruto's mind. "They are ants before you. Why do you flee? Rise. Command. Rule." Heat spread from his core outward, not the familiar warmth of the Nine-Tails chakra, but something darker, colder. His shadow on the ground began to waver, to grow, to spread. "Naruto!" Sakura shouted, her voice distant through the rushing in his ears. "Your shadow." He looked down. His shadow was no longer attached to his feet. It pooled around him like spilled ink, spreading across the clearing. And from it, figures began to rise, soldiers formed of darkness, armed with spears and shields of shadow. Naruto hadn't summoned them. Hadn't even known it was possible. Yet somehow, he knew they would obey him. "Attack," he whispered, the word feeling ancient on his tongue. The shadow soldiers moved as one, surrounding the creatures. Unlike Naruto's team, they seemed to know exactly how to fight these monsters. Their spears found the joints in the creatures' armor with precision, pinning them down while others delivered killing blows. In seconds, all 4 monsters lay dead, dissolving into particles of blue light that floated back toward the gate. The shadow soldiers turned to Naruto, kneeling in perfect unison. What did you do?" Sakura asked, staring at the kneeling shadows. "I don't know," Naruto said honestly. He could feel them, the soldiers, like extensions of himself. With a thought, they sank back into the ground, becoming part of his shadow again. Shikamaru approached cautiously. "That wasn't a jutsu I've ever seen." "It wasn't a jutsu at all," Naruto said, feeling suddenly exhausted. "I don't know what it was." The gate pulsed again, more violently this time. "We need to get back to the village," Shikamaru said. "Report this immediately." "Yeah," Naruto agreed, but his eyes stayed fixed on the gate. Something about it called to him, felt connected to whatever had just happened with his shadow. As they turned to leave, a new figure emerged from the gate, not a monster this time, but a woman. She wore armor unlike any Naruto had seen, lightweight and fitted, with a massive sword strapped to her back. Her hair was cut short, practical, with a single green highlight through her bangs. She scanned the clearing, her gaze stopping on the dissolving creatures, then lifting to Naruto and his team. Her eyes narrowed. "You killed the ants," she said, her accent strange but her words clear. "How?" Shikamaru stepped forward. "We're shinobi of the hidden leaf. Identify yourself." The woman ignored him, her attention fixed solely on Naruto. She approached, moving with a fighter's grace, and stopped a few meters away. She inhaled deeply through her nose, then her eyes widened. "Impossible," she whispered. "Your mana signature, It's not like anything I've ever smelled before. My what? Naruto asked. Who are you? Sakura demanded, stepping between them. The woman straightened. My name is Hae-In. S-rank hunter of the Korean Hunter Association. I'm investigating dimensional anomalies. She gestured to the gate. This is what we call a gate, a rift between your world and mine that allows monsters to enter. Monsters like those? Shikamaru pointed to where the creatures had fallen. Yes, though those were merely low-level ants. The real threats are much worse. Her gaze returned to Naruto. How did you kill them? Those shadows weren't hunter abilities. Before Naruto could answer, the gate pulsed again, more violently. Hae-In turned to it, hand going to her sword. It's destabilizing, she said. We need to clear the area. As if to emphasize her point, the gate flared with energy, sending out a shockwave that knocked them all back. Naruto felt something snap inside him, like a dam breaking. Images flooded his mind, a vast hall of obsidian, countless shadow soldiers kneeling before a throne, a war against beings made of light. The pain drove him to his knees. Naruto. Sakura was at his side instantly. What's wrong? The gate collapsed in on itself with a thunderous crack, vanishing as suddenly as it had appeared. The pressure in Naruto's head subsided, the foreign memories fading like a dream after waking. I'm fine, he said, though the lie was obvious. Just a headache. Hae-In was watching him with undisguised interest. You should come with me. The Hunter Association needs to know about you. He's not going anywhere with you, Sakura said firmly. We're returning to our village to report this incident. This isn't just your concern anymore, Hae-In replied. These gates are appearing across both our worlds. What happened here is just the beginning. Shikamaru, ever the strategist, intervened. Why don't you come with us? Speak to our Hokage. We can exchange information. Hae-In considered this, then nodded. Acceptable. I need to learn more about this world anyway. As they gathered themselves to leave, she fell into step beside Naruto. Those shadows, she said quietly. They weren't normal. In my world, only one being commands shadows like that. Who? Naruto asked, a chill running down his spine. The Shadow Monarch, she said. But that's impossible. You're human. Naruto didn't answer. For the first time in his life, he wasn't entirely sure that was true. The Hokage's office was uncomfortably crowded. Tsunade sat behind her desk, fingers steepled, as she listened to their report. Shizune stood beside her, while Kakashi leaned against the wall. Naruto and his team stood before the desk, with Hae-In slightly apart, an outsider among them. Let me get this straight, Tsunade said when they finished. A portal appeared in our territory, monsters came through, and this woman followed them from another dimension. Yes, Lady Tsunade, Shikamaru confirmed. And Naruto somehow commanded shadow soldiers that weren't created by any jutsu we know of. Naruto shifted uncomfortably. I can't explain it. It just happened. Tsunade turned to Hae-In. And you claim this is happening in multiple locations? Yes. My organization has been tracking these gates for weeks. They're appearing with increasing frequency and in multiple dimensions, not just yours and mine. Can you prove any of this? Kakashi asked. Hae-In reached into a pouch at her belt and withdrew a small device, something like a compass but with unfamiliar technology. This detects gates. There are currently 7 active within a 100-kilometer radius of this village. The room fell silent. 7. Tsunade finally asked. Yes. And they're growing stronger. Soon, more dangerous monsters will emerge. Hae-In's gaze shifted to Naruto. I've never seen anyone outside the Hunter Association who could fight them effectively. Except him. All eyes turned to Naruto. I don't know what happened out there, he said defensively. It was instinct. The Ninetales? Tsunade asked quietly. Naruto shook his head. No. Different. It didn't feel like the fox's chakra at all. It was colder. Darker. Hae-In's eyes widened slightly. You have another power source besides the mana I smell? Mana isn't a thing here, Sakura explained. We use chakra. Interesting. Hae-In approached Naruto, circling him. But what I smell isn't just chakra. There's something else, something ancient. And after what I saw in that clearing. She stopped in front of him. You smell like death. Like shadows given form. That's enough, Tsunade said sharply. Naruto, I want you to visit the hospital. Let Sakura run some tests. I'm fine, Naruto protested. That's an order, not a request. Naruto recognized that tone and knew better than to argue. Yes, Granny Tsunade. As for you, Tsunade continued, turning to Hae-In, I'm assigning Kakashi to work with you. Map these gates, gather intelligence, but no action without my approval. Understood? Hae-In nodded. I came seeking allies. It seems I've found them. Good. Dismissed, all of you except Shikamaru. As they filed out, Naruto caught Hae-In studying him again. What? He asked. Nothing, she said. Just wondering what you really are. I'm Naruto Uzumaki, he replied with forced cheerfulness. Future Hokage of the Hidden Leaf. She didn't smile. Perhaps. But I think you're something else too. Something even you don't understand yet. Before he could respond, she turned away to speak with Kakashi. Naruto watched her go, unable to shake the feeling that she was right. The hospital room was sterile and quiet as Sakura reviewed the test results. Naruto sat on the examination table, swinging his legs impatiently. Well, he asked. Am I dying or what? Sakura rolled her eyes. You're fine. Physically, at least. Your chakra pathways are normal, vitals stable. See? Told you. But, she continued, there's something strange in your chakra signature. A fluctuation I can't explain. It's like there's another energy system overlapping with your normal network. Naruto's false bravado faded. What does that mean? I don't know. It doesn't seem dangerous, but... She hesitated. Naruto, what happened in that clearing? What did it feel like? He thought back to that moment, the voice in his head, the power flowing through him. Like remembering something I never knew I forgot. The shadows just, responded to me. Sakura set down her clipboard. Can you do it now? Just a small demonstration. I don't know. I haven't tried since then. Try. Naruto closed his eyes, focusing on his shadow. He reached for that cold, dark feeling from the clearing. For a moment, nothing happened. Then he felt it, a whisper of power, a connection to something vast and ancient. His shadow darkened, spread slightly beyond its natural boundaries. A small hand formed from it, rose from the floor, and waved before dissolving back into darkness. Sakura's eyes were wide. That's definitely not a jutsu. No kidding. Naruto felt drained just from that small demonstration. What's happening to me, Sakura? I don't know. But we'll figure it out. She squeezed his shoulder. Get some rest tonight. And Naruto? Don't tell anyone else about this yet. Not until we understand it better. He nodded, but as he left the hospital, he couldn't shake the feeling that understanding was still far away. That night, Naruto dreamed. He stood in a vast hall made of obsidian, shadow soldiers lining the walls by the thousands. Before him stretched a long walkway leading to a throne carved from what looked like frozen darkness. And on that throne, himself. But not himself. This version of him was older, clothed in armor that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. A crown of shadows rested on his head, and his eyes were completely black, without whites or pupils. "You've forgotten," the figure on the throne said, his voice echoing strangely. "You've forgotten who you are. What you are." "I'm Naruto Uzumaki," Naruto replied, but the word sounded hollow even to him. The throned figure smiled. "That is one name you've worn. One life you've lived. But before that? Before everything?" He stood, and the entire hall seemed to tremble. "You were the first. The original. The Shadow Monarch who preceded all others." "That's impossible." "Is it?" The figure gestured, and the hall transformed. Now they stood on a battlefield. Beings made of light fought against shadow armies. At the center of the conflict, Naruto, the other Naruto, commanded the shadows with godlike power. "You ruled death itself," the throned figure continued. "Until they came. The gods of light. They feared your power, so they united against you." The scene shifted again. The shadow armies were falling. The light beings surrounded the other Naruto, overwhelming him with their combined power. Defeated but not destroyed, you cast yourself into the cycle of reincarnation. Sealed your power and memories away. Became human, to hide from those who would destroy you completely. "This is just a dream," Naruto insisted. "None of this is real. All dreams contain truth." The figure approached, and with each step, he looked more like Naruto himself. "The gates are opening. The barriers between worlds are falling. They will find you again, these gods of light. And this time, if you are not prepared, they will finish what they started." He reached out, touching Naruto's forehead. "Remember. Before it's too late." Naruto woke with a gasp, sheets soaked with sweat. The dream lingered, vivid and disturbing. Outside his window, dawn was breaking, painting Konoha in soft gold light. Just a dream, he told himself. Just a weird dream after a weird day. But when he caught sight of his reflection in the mirror, for just a moment, he could have sworn his eyes were solid black. 3 days passed. 7 gates had been confirmed in the Land of Fire, just as Hae-In had predicted. Teams of shinobi were assigned to monitor them, but strict orders prohibited entering the gates or engaging the creatures that occasionally emerged. Naruto had been kept busy with patrol duties, always accompanied by at least one senior jonin, Kakashi's idea, supposedly for safety, but Naruto suspected it was to keep an eye on him. Today, his babysitter was Neji. "This is stupid," Naruto complained as they circled the perimeter of the gate nearest the village. "I'm not going to suddenly go crazy and jump through the portal." Niji's expression remained neutral. "These are unprecedented circumstances. Caution is warranted." Yeah. Naruto kicked a stone, sending it skittering into the bushes. "Where's the hunter lady today anyway? She's usually hanging around these things. Miss Cha is meeting with Lady Tsunade. Apparently, more hunters have arrived from her world." That caught Naruto's attention. More people like her. With weapons like that sword she carries? Yes. They call themselves the reconnaissance team. Their job is to survey our world and assess the threat level of the gates here. They think we're a threat. They think the gates are a threat to everyone, Neji corrected. And given what we saw come through that first one, they may be right. Naruto couldn't argue with that. The creatures, ants, Hae-In had called them, had been unlike anything he'd encountered before. And according to her, they were the weakest of what the gates could produce. A flicker of movement caught his eye. Someone was approaching from the direction of the village, Hae-In, her distinctive green highlighted hair visible even at a distance. "Uzumaki," she called as she drew closer. "I've been looking for you." "Me? Why?" She glanced at Neji. "I need to speak with him alone." Neji frowned. "I have orders to, it's about the Shadow Monarch," she interrupted. And what he did at the first gate. A tense silence followed. 5 minutes, Niji finally said. I'll patrol the eastern perimeter. Once he was out of earshot, Hae-In turned to Naruto. Show me. Show you what? The shadows. Command them. Naruto hesitated. I'm not sure I can do it on purpose. Try. With a sigh, Naruto closed his eyes. He reached for that cold power, that connection to darkness he'd felt before. It came easier this time, like a muscle being trained. His shadow expanded, darkened, and from it rose a single soldier, sword in hand. Hae-In circled the shadow soldier, studying it from every angle. Remarkable. It's identical to the one summoned by, she stopped herself. By who? Naruto pressed. She met his gaze directly. In my world, there is only one being who commands shadows like this. The Shadow Monarch, Sung Jin-woo. But his powers came from the previous Shadow Monarch, a being called Ashborn. And you think I'm somehow connected to them? I don't know what you are, she admitted. Your mana signature is unlike anything I've encountered. Part of it is similar to the Shadow Monarch's, yes, but there's something else, something older, more primal. The shadow soldier stood motionless, awaiting commands. Naruto could feel it, an extension of himself, ready to act on his will. Return, he whispered, and the soldier melted back into his shadow. The gates appearing here can't be a coincidence, Hae-In continued. Not with you displaying these powers. The question is why now? What triggered it? Before Naruto could respond, a massive surge of energy pulsed from the gate. The air around it distorted, reality itself seeming to bend. Get back! Hae-In shouted, drawing her sword in one fluid motion. The gate expanded suddenly, its edges flaring with blue-black energy. From within emerged a creature unlike the ants from before, larger, bipedal, with arms that ended in massive blades. Its body was covered in the same black glass-like material, but patterns of blue energy pulsed beneath the surface. Niji! Naruto called, already forming hand signs. The creature's head swiveled toward the sound, that jagged crack mouth widening. It moved with blistering speed, covering the distance to Naruto in seconds. Naruto barely dodged the first strike, the creature's blade arm slicing through his jacket sleeve. He countered with a kick that connected solidly with the monster's torso but seemed to do little damage. Physical attacks won't work. Hae-In shouted, her sword glowing with a strange energy as she charged. It's a mid-level knight. Use mana, or whatever you call it here. Niji appeared from the tree line, Byakugan activated. Its chakra network is unlike anything I've seen, he called, sliding into the gentle fist stance. The flow is reversed. The creature turned, sensing a new threat, and lunged at Niji. Palms glowing with chakra, Niji struck at the monster's joints, the same weak points Naruto's shadow soldiers had targeted days earlier. The knight staggered but didn't fall. It swung its blade arm in a wide arc that Niji barely avoided. Hae-In attacked from behind, her sword leaving trails of light as it cut deep into the creature's back. Black ichor sprayed from the wound, but the knight didn't seem to feel pain. It whirled, catching Hae-In with the flat of its blade and sending her flying into a tree. Hae-In! Naruto shouted, fear spiking through him at seeing her crumpled form. Something snapped inside him then, the same dam breaking he'd felt days ago, but stronger. The cold power surged through him, no longer a trickle but a flood. His shadow exploded outward, covering the clearing in darkness. Command. Rule. They are yours to control. The voice from his dreams echoed in his mind. Without thinking, Naruto extended his hand toward the knight. Arise, he commanded, the word feeling ancient on his tongue. The knight froze mid-attack. Its body shuddered, black ichor leaking from every joint. Then, slowly, it knelt, lowering its blade arms to the ground in submission. What the hell? Niji whispered. Naruto approached the kneeling monster, feeling its consciousness, simple, violent, but now bound to his will. He could crush it with a thought, or serve, he said. The knight rose, turning to face the gate. It stood at attention, a sentinel awaiting orders. Hae-In had recovered, approaching cautiously, sword still drawn. You didn't just command shadows, she said, voice tight with shock. You dominated the monster itself. Is that normal for this shadow monarch person? Naruto asked. No. He commands shadows to fight monsters. He doesn't command the monsters themselves. Her eyes were wide. What are you? The question echoed the one from his dream. Naruto looked at his hands, feeling the power coursing through him, foreign yet familiar, terrifying yet exhilarating. I don't know, he answered honestly. Before they could discuss it further, the gate pulsed again. This time, what emerged wasn't a monster but a woman, or something that resembled one. Her skin was pale red, her eyes solid black. Small horns protruded from her forehead, and when she smiled, her teeth were unnaturally sharp. Found you, she said, her gaze fixed on Naruto. After all this time. Hae-In stepped forward, sword raised. Identify yourself, demon. The woman ignored her completely. You don't remember me, do you? She asked Naruto. But you will. The seals are breaking. The old king returns. Who are you? Naruto demanded. My name is Esil. And unlike these hunters and their false monarch, I serve the true ruler of shadows. She bowed deeply. I serve you, my king. Or I did, before you fell. Images flashed through Naruto's mind, the obsidian throne room from his dreams, armies of shadows marching, and this woman, Esil, standing at his right hand. Impossible, Hae-In whispered. You're saying he's the primordial shadow monarch, Esil finished. The true king who preceded Ashborn. The first to command death itself. The night Naruto had dominated shifted, as if responding to Esil's words. With shocking speed, it turned and drove its blade through her chest. No! Naruto shouted, but it was too late. Esil looked down at the blade protruding from her body, black blood dripping from the wound. Then, impossibly, she laughed. Still protecting you, she said, gripping the blade with bare hands. Even when you don't remember giving the order. With strength that belied her slender frame, she pulled herself off the blade and stepped away from the knight. The wound in her chest closed before their eyes, black blood retracting back into her body. Demons are hard to kill, she explained with a sharp-toothed smile. Especially ones bound to the Shadow Monarch's service. The knight seemed confused, its head swiveling between Naruto and Esil. Naruto could feel its simple mind struggling with conflicting loyalties. Enough, he said, extending his hand again. Return to the gate. The knight obeyed instantly, turning and walking back through the portal, which sealed shut behind it. Neji had moved to Hae-In's side, both of them watching this exchange with undisguised shock and wariness. Esil, for her part, seemed delighted. Your power grows, she observed. But you're still caught between worlds. Between lives. She approached, stopping just out of reach. When you're ready to remember everything, find me. I'll be waiting. With those cryptic words, she vanished, not through the gate, but in a swirl of shadows reminiscent of how Naruto's soldiers disappeared. Silence fell over the clearing. Naruto stood frozen, mind reeling from everything that had happened. The power he'd called upon was already receding, leaving him exhausted and confused. We need to report this, Neji finally said. All of it. Hae-In nodded, but her eyes never left Naruto. Yes. Because if what the demon said is true, the situation is far more complicated than we realized. She called me the primordial shadow monarch, Naruto said. The one who came before Ashborn. What does that mean? It means, Hae-In replied gravely, that everything I thought I knew about the origin of the gates, the monsters, even the Shadow Monarch system itself, might be wrong. She sheathed her sword. And it means that Ashborn himself will soon know you exist. Is that bad? If you truly preceded him, if you're the original monarch he replaced, then yes. Her expression darkened. It's very bad indeed. As they headed back toward the village, Naruto couldn't shake the feeling that his life had just changed irrevocably. Not since learning about the Nine Tails had he felt so disconnected from his own identity, so uncertain about who, or what, he really was. And somewhere deep within, in a place older than his human consciousness, something ancient stirred. Something that remembered ruling from an obsidian throne. Something that recognized the name Ashborn not as a stranger, but as a betrayer. The Hokage's office was tense as Naruto finished recounting what had happened at the gate. Tsunade's face had grown increasingly grave, while Kakashi's visible eye had narrowed in concern. Shikamaru, called in as the village's strategic advisor, looked troubled. So now we have demons appearing as well as monsters, Tsunade summarized. And claims that Naruto is some kind of primordial entity. The primordial shadow monarch, Hae-In corrected. A being I've never heard of in any Hunter Association records. Could this demon be lying? Kakashi asked. Creating division between our worlds? Esil said I'd fallen, Naruto interjected. That there were seals breaking. That fits with how these powers keep surfacing. He hesitated, then added, and with the dreams I've been having. Dreams? Tsunade's eyes sharpened. You didn't mention dreams before. I thought they were just dreams. But now. He described the obsidian throne room, the shadow armies, the battle against beings of light. As he spoke, the images became clearer in his mind, less like dreams and more like memories. This complicates things, Shikamaru said when Naruto finished. If these aren't just new abilities but the awakening of some sealed entity. I'm still me, Naruto said firmly. Whatever these memories or powers are, I'm still Naruto Uzumaki. No one suggesting otherwise, Tsunade assured him, though her expression remained concerned. But we need to understand what we're dealing with. Hae-In, who had been quiet for most of the discussion, finally spoke. There's a way to find out. The Korean Hunter Association has researchers specializing in man-related phenomena. With your permission, I'd like to take Naruto back with me, just for a few days. Absolutely not, Tsunade said immediately. Naruto stays in the village. With respect, Lady Hokage, these gates are appearing in multiple worlds. What's happening transcends any single village or nation. If Naruto is connected to their origin, Tsunade emphasized. We have nothing but the word of a demon who appeared from nowhere. A demon who knew about powers Naruto didn't even know he had, Hae-In countered. Naruto cleared his throat. Don't I get a say in this? All eyes turned to him. I want to understand what's happening to me. If going with Hae-In will help with that, I'm willing to go. Naruto, Tsunade began, but he cut her off. I'm not asking permission, Granny. I'm telling you what I'm going to do. He met her gaze steadily. You know I have to do this. A tense silence followed. Finally, Tsunade sighed. Fine. But not alone. Kakashi goes with you. Kakashi nodded. I was about to volunteer anyway. When do we leave? Naruto asked Hae-In. Tomorrow morning. The closest stable gate is near the eastern border. It's our primary access point between worlds. As the meeting concluded, Naruto found himself both anxious and excited. Part of him, the part that had always been Naruto Uzumaki, feared what he might discover about himself. But another part, the part connected to those strange memories and cold power, felt like it was finally going home. Sakura was waiting outside his apartment when he returned to pack. Going somewhere? She asked, nodding at the backpack in his hand. Yeah. To Hae-In's world. Just for a few days. I heard. Her expression was unreadable. Tsunade's not happy about it. When is she ever happy about anything I do? That drew a small smile. Fair point. She hesitated, then asked, are you scared? About what you might find out? Naruto set down his pack, considering the question. Yes and no. It's weird, Sakura. These powers, these memories that keep surfacing, they should feel foreign. Wrong. But they don't. They feel like. He struggled for the right words. Like coming home, she suggested. Yeah. Exactly. Like parts of me that were missing are finally returning. He looked down at his hand, remembering how the shadows had responded to his command. But what if who I was before isn't someone I want to be now? What if this shadow monarch was a monster? Sakura finished when he trailed off. Yeah. Then you'll still be you. She placed her hand on his arm. Naruto, I've known you since we were children. Whatever you were in some past life, whoever you were before, that doesn't change who you are now. You're the most annoyingly stubborn, unexpectedly kind, ridiculously determined person I've ever met. No ancient shadow powers are going to change that. Her confidence in him was touching. Thanks, Sakura. Besides, she added with a sly smile, someone has to keep an eye on you around that hunter woman. She's pretty, and you've always had terrible taste. Hey. Naruto protested, but he was laughing. Hae-In's not interested in me. She just wants to figure out what I am. Aha. And she couldn't stop staring at you during the entire meeting because I'm a mysterious ancient being with awesome shadow powers. Sakura rolled her eyes. You're still an idiot, ancient being or not. As they talked, the sun was setting over Konoha. Naruto looked out over the village, the place that had been his home his entire life. Tomorrow he would see another world, one where gates and monsters were commonplace, where hunters like Hae-In fought to protect humanity. And maybe, just maybe, he would finally understand the voice in his dreams, the cold power in his shadow, and the truth about who he had been before becoming Naruto Uzumaki. Dawn broke clear and cold over the eastern forest. Naruto, Kakashi, and Hae-In stood before the gate, which pulsed with steady blue-black energy. Once we're through, stay close, Hae-In instructed. The transition can be disorienting the first time. We've faced worse, Kakashi said mildly. Hae-In gave him a look that suggested she doubted that very much. This gate connects directly to a secure Hunter Association facility. We'll be met by a containment team. Containment? Naruto questioned. You didn't mention that part. Standard procedure for all gate transitions. Nothing to worry about if you're not hostile. And if we are? Her hand rested casually on her sword hilt. Then worry. With that reassuring thought, they approached the gate. Up close, Naruto could see swirling patterns in the energy, like currents in a dark ocean. As Hae-In stepped through, the gate rippled around her like water. Here goes nothing, Naruto muttered, and followed her into the unknown. Transition was the wrong word. Transition implied gradual change. This was instantaneous displacement, one moment in the forest, the next in a stark white room with armored figures pointing weapons at them. Stand down, Hae-In ordered. They're with me. The weapons lowered, but the tension remained palpable. Naruto took in his surroundings, a circular chamber with multiple exits, all sealed with heavy doors. The walls were marked with strange symbols, and monitoring equipment lined the perimeter. Welcome to gate operations, Hae-In said. Not our most elegant facility, but the most secure. Impressive, Kakashi commented, though his casual tone suggested he was unimpressed. A new figure entered, a man in a white lab coat rather than armor. These are the visitors from the new dimension. Yes, Dr. Kim. This is Kakashi Hitaki, a jonin of their military. And this, she gestured to Naruto, is Naruto Uzumaki. The one I reported about. Dr. Kim approached, studying Naruto with undisguised fascination. Remarkable. The mana signature is unlike anything in our database. He held up a device that beeped rapidly when pointed at Naruto. And the readings are off the charts. Please, come with me to the research wing. As they followed Dr. Kim through the facility, Naruto was struck by how different this world was from his own. The technology was far more advanced, with screens displaying information everywhere and devices whose purpose he couldn't begin to guess. Yet there was also something familiar about the atmosphere, the same tension, the same readiness for combat that pervaded Konoha during times of crisis. They entered a large laboratory filled with more equipment and several other researchers. In the center was something like an examination table surrounded by scanning equipment. If you would, Dr. Kim gestured to the table. Naruto hesitated, looking to Kakashi, who nodded slightly. Proceed, but stay alert. As he lay on the table, Dr. Kim activated the surrounding equipment. Beams of light passed over Naruto's body while screens displayed data that meant nothing to him. Extraordinary, one researcher murmured. The mana circuits are completely integrated with his chakra network, creating a hybrid energy system. And look at this, another pointed to a display. The shadow affinity is absolute. 100% resonance. What does that mean? Naruto asked. Dr. Kim glanced at him. It means, Mr. Uzumaki, that your connection to shadow magic is the strongest we've ever recorded. Even stronger than the current shadow monarchs. Speaking of whom, Hae-In interjected, has Sung Jin-woo been notified? A subtle tension filled the room. Not yet, Dr. Kim replied carefully. The chairman felt it prudent to gather data first. The chairman is here. Hae-In straightened slightly. Arrived an hour ago. He's very interested in our visitors. As if summoned by the mention, the laboratory doors opened to admit an older man in an impeccable suit. Despite his age, he moved with the confidence of a fighter, and his eyes missed nothing as they swept the room. Chairman Go, Hae-In said formally. I didn't expect you personally. How could I stay away when reports of a possible primordial entity crossed my desk? The chairman approached Naruto, who was sitting up on the examination table. So. This is the young man who commands shadows without a system, who dominates monsters with a word, and who a demon called the true Shadow Monarch. That's me, Naruto said, meeting the man's gaze. Though I'm still figuring out the true part. The chairman's lips quirked in what might have been amusement. Honest. I appreciate that. He turned to Dr. Kim. What have you found? Preliminary scans confirm Hunter Cha's report. His mana signature is unlike anything we've encountered. It shares certain characteristics with the Shadow Monarchs, but there are fundamental differences, older patterns, more complex structures. And the demon's claim cannot be verified without more extensive testing. However, Dr. Kim hesitated. There is one anomaly. When we compared his mana signature to our historical records, we found a partial match. The chairman's eyes narrowed. To what? To residual patterns found in the oldest gates. The ones that predated the current system. A heavy silence fell over the laboratory. I see, the chairman finally said. He turned back to Naruto. Mr. Uzumaki, I believe we have much to discuss. But first, you must be tired from your journey. Hunter Cha will show you and your companion to quarters where you can rest. We'll continue tomorrow. It was clearly a dismissal, and though Naruto had questions, many questions, he recognized the tone of someone who would not be providing answers just yet. As Hae-In led them from the laboratory, Kakashi fell into step beside Naruto. What do you think? Naruto asked quietly. I think, Kakashi replied, that they know more than they're telling us. And that whatever you are, it has them worried. Great. More mysteries. Look on the bright side. At least no one's tried to kill you yet. yet being the key word there. Hae-In showed them to a small but comfortable suite with 2 bedrooms, a common area, and facilities that seemed similar to those in Konoha, if more technologically advanced. Rest, she advised. Tomorrow will be. She searched for the right word. Eventful. Before you go, Naruto said, catching her arm. Tell me something honestly. This Sung Jin-woo, the current Shadow Monarch, should I be worried about meeting him? Hae-In's expression grew serious. Jin-woo is the most powerful hunter in our world. He single-handedly ended threats that would have destroyed nations. And according to everything we've been taught, he is the legitimate heir to the powers of Ashborn, the greatest of the monarchs. That doesn't answer my question. If what the demon said is true, if you are what came before Ashborn, then yes, you should be worried. Her eyes met his. Because that would make you a threat to everything Jin-woo believes about his power and purpose. And he doesn't respond well to threats. With that sobering thought, she left them to settle in. Well, Kakashi said once they were alone, this is going to be interesting. Naruto moved to the window, looking out over a city unlike any he'd ever seen, towering buildings of glass and steel, vehicles moving without horses, lights everywhere despite the setting sun. A world so different from his own, yet now connected by these gates, these rifts in reality. And somewhere in this world was another man who commanded shadows. Another monarch. One who might see Naruto as a challenger to his throne. Yeah, Naruto agreed, watching the unfamiliar stars begin to appear over this strange new world. Interesting is one word for it. That night, his dreams were more vivid than ever before. He stood again in the obsidian hall, before the shadow throne. But this time, there was someone else present, a younger man with piercing eyes and an aura of immense power. So you've returned, the man said, his voice echoing in the vast space. After all this time. Who are you? Naruto asked, though somehow he already knew. I am Sung Jin-woo. The Shadow Monarch. The man's eyes narrowed. And you are an impossibility. I'm starting to get that a lot lately. You don't remember, do you? Jin-woo circled him, studying him like a puzzle. You don't remember creating this system. Creating Ashborn. Creating me, in a way. If I created it, Naruto countered, then doesn't that make me the rightful ruler? Jin-woo's laugh was cold. Rights mean nothing in our world. Only power. His shadow extended, darkened, formed soldiers that surrounded Naruto. And I have spent years mastering this power, while you are just beginning to remember it exists. The shadow soldiers closed in, weapons raised. This is just a dream, Naruto said. You can't hurt me here. Can't I? Jin-woo's smile was dangerous. The realm of shadows isn't bound by physical laws. Dreams, reality, the boundaries blur for those like us. He stepped closer. Consider this a warning. Stay in your world, forgotten king. The throne of shadows has a new master now. The shadow soldiers attacked as one, their blades piercing Naruto from all sides. He woke with a strangled gasp, phantom pain lancing through him where the dream blades had struck. Dawn was breaking over the unfamiliar city, painting the room in pale light. A dream, he told himself. Just a dream. But as he rose to face whatever this new day would bring, he couldn't shake the feeling that it had been something more, a challenge, a warning. A declaration of war. Chapter 2, Worlds Colliding. Naruto stood on the rooftop of the Hunter Association building, watching the sunrise over Seoul. 3 days in this strange world, and he still couldn't get used to it, the towering buildings that made even the Hokage monument look small, the constant hum of machines, the sheer number of people packed into one city. There you are. Kakashi's voice came from behind him. Couldn't sleep again? Nah. Naruto didn't turn around. Too much noise, too many lights. Too many dreams. Naruto's shoulders tensed slightly. You could say that. Kakashi moved to stand beside him. Want to talk about it? Not much to say. Same stuff, the throne room, shadow armies, that Jinwoo guy threatening me. Naruto rubbed his neck. Feels more real each time. The researchers say that makes sense. The more you're exposed to this world's energy, mana, they call it, the faster your memories are returning. Great. So I get to remember being some ancient shadow god even faster. Kakashi's visible eye crinkled with concern. You know, we could go back to Konoha. Tsunade would, no. Naruto's voice was firm. I need answers, Kakashi-sensei. And they're here, not back home. Before Kakashi could respond, the door to the rooftop opened. Hae-In stepped out, dressed in training gear rather than her usual armor. There you are, she said. I've been looking everywhere. Sorry. Naruto gestured to the cityscape. Just needed some air. Well, you're needed downstairs. Dr. Kim has the results of yesterday's tests, and, she hesitated. The chairman has requested your presence afterward. For training. That caught Naruto's attention. Training? What kind? Shadow manipulation. He thinks he can help you control your powers better. And you don't agree? Naruto could read the reservation in her tone. Hae-In glanced at Kakashi, then back to Naruto. It's not my place to question the chairman's decisions. But? Naruto pressed. But I think pushing your development too quickly could be dangerous. For everyone. Her eyes met his directly. Including you. The concern in her voice was unexpected. For the past 3 days, Hae-In had been professional but distant, guiding them through the association facilities, explaining hunter protocols, but always maintaining a careful reserve. I'll be fine, Naruto assured her with a grin. I've handled worse than some shadow training. Her expression didn't lighten. Have you? Because from what I've seen, these powers are affecting you more each day. The way you move, the way you speak sometimes, it's like watching two different people occupying the same body. Naruto's smile faltered. He knew what she meant. There were moments when words came to his lips that weren't his, when his body responded to threats with movements he'd never trained in. Moments when he felt ancient, powerful, cold. All the more reason to learn control, he said finally. Hae-In nodded, though she still looked unconvinced. The lab, 10 minutes. She turned to leave, then paused. Naruto. Be careful around the chairman. He doesn't see you as a person. He sees you as a potential asset, or a potential threat. After she left, Kakashi sighed. She's right, you know. About which part? All of it. Naruto turned back to the city view. Yeah, I know. But what choice do I have? If I don't learn to control these powers, they'll control me. He flexed his hand, watching as his shadow rippled in response. And I'm done letting others decide who I am. Dr. Kim's laboratory was filled with more equipment than the day before, and more researchers hovered around screens displaying data Naruto couldn't begin to interpret. Ah, Mr. Uzumaki, excellent timing. Dr. Kim waved him over to a central display. We've completed our analysis of your energy signature. And? Naruto prompted when the doctor paused dramatically. It's, well, unprecedented is an understatement. Dar. Kim brought up a series of images on the screen. This is the mana signature of Sung Jinwoo, our shadow monarch. The image showed a human silhouette filled with swirling blue-black energy, concentrated around the core and flowing outward in distinct patterns. And this, he continued, bringing up another image, is yours. Naruto's silhouette was similar but critically different. The same blue-black energy flowed through him, but it was interwoven with something else, threads of golden light that formed intricate, almost runic patterns. The shadow affinity is unmistakable, Dr. Kim explained. But it's merged with your chakra network in ways we don't fully understand. More importantly, there are patterns here that predate our earliest records, energy structures that correspond to artifacts found in the oldest known gates. What does that mean? Kakashi asked. Dar. Kim hesitated, glancing toward Hae-In, who stood silently by the door. It means, she answered for him, that the demon was telling the truth. Naruto's connection to the shadow system predates Ashborn, predates everything we thought we knew about the origin of hunters and gates. So I really am this Primordial Shadow Monarch? Naruto asked. The evidence suggests you were, Dr. Kim corrected. In a past life. Your current incarnation is human, with human limitations, though your awakening powers are rapidly changing that. Changing how? Dr. Kim brought up new images, time-lapse scans of Naruto's body over the 3 days since their arrival. The shadow energy is integrating more deeply with each passing hour. Your cellular structure is being reinforced, your sensory capabilities enhanced. Even your thought patterns are showing increased complexity. That doesn't sound like a bad thing, Naruto observed. It's not, necessarily. But the rate of change is concerning. At this trajectory, within weeks, your physiology will be more shadow than human. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Can it be stopped? Kakashi asked quietly. We don't know. This is uncharted territory. Dr. Kim's expression turned grave. But there's more. We've detected energy fluctuations in your seal, the one containing the nine-tailed fox. Naruto's hand went instinctively to his stomach. What kind of fluctuations? The shadow energy appears to be communicating with the entity inside you. For lack of a better term, they're resonating. Naruto and Kakashi exchanged alarmed glances. The Nine-Tails was dangerous enough on its own. If it gained access to shadow powers too. Is that why the chairman wants to train him? Hae-In asked. To prevent this resonance. Partially. But he's also concerned about what happens if the current Shadow Monarch learns of Naruto's existence. Dr. Kim looked uncomfortable. Which brings me to the final piece of news. We've detected a significant mana disturbance approaching Seoul. An S-rank hunter is coming. Unscheduled, uninvited. Jin-Woo, Naruto said immediately, the name sending a chill down his spine despite the warmth of the laboratory. Dr. Kim nodded. He'll be here by tomorrow. The chairman wants you ready. Ready for what? Kakashi asked sharply. To prove you're not a threat, Hae-In answered, her expression grim. Or to defend yourself if you can't. The training room was unlike anything in Konoha, a vast space with reinforced walls covered in strange symbols, observation windows along one side, and a floor that seemed to absorb sound. The chairman stood in the center, dressed not in his usual suit but in combat gear reminiscent of what Hae-In wore. Mr. Uzumaki, he greeted as Naruto entered. I trust Dr. Kim has briefed you. If you mean did he tell me I'm turning into a shadow creature and the big bad shadow monarch is coming to possibly kill me, then yeah, I'm briefed. The chairman's lips quirked. Blunt. Good. We don't have time for delicacy. He gestured to the center of the room. Your powers are awakening whether we want them to or not. Better to control the process than be controlled by it. Kakashi had taken a position against the wall, watchful. Hae-In stood near him, her hand resting casually on her sword hilt. So what's the plan? Naruto asked, moving to the indicated spot. Shadow push-ups. Darkness squats. The plan, the chairman said, unsmiling, is to push you to your limits. To force your shadow to respond instinctively. He moved with sudden, blinding speed, a knife appearing in his hand as he slashed at Naruto's throat. Naruto barely dodged, years of ninja training kicking in. What the hell? Too slow, the chairman said, attacking again. Your human reflexes won't save you against Jin-Woo. This time, the blade caught Naruto's arm, drawing blood. The pain was sharp, unexpected. But something else happened too, his shadow darkened, extended, formed a shield that deflected the chairman's next strike. "There," the older man said with satisfaction. "Your shadow responds to threat. Now make it respond to will." "I don't," the chairman didn't let him finish, pressing the attack relentlessly. Naruto found himself on the defensive, his shadow reacting instinctively to protect him but not obeying any conscious commands. "Control it," the chairman barked. "Don't let it control you." Frustration building, Naruto tried to focus on his shadow as he would his chakra, directing it outward. Nothing happened. The chairman's knife sliced his cheek, then his shoulder. "If you can't master this, you're of no use to us. Just another monster to be contained." "I'm trying." "Try harder." The chairman moved again, this time aiming a killing blow at Naruto's heart. Something snapped. Not in frustration but in recognition, a memory surfacing from the depths. Naruto's hand shot out, not to block the knife but to command the darkness. "Arise," he said, voice resonating with power. His shadow exploded outward, forming not just a shield but a dozen soldiers, their spears leveled at the chairman. The older man froze, the tip of a shadow spear resting against his throat. "Enough," Naruto said, and for a moment, his eyes flashed completely black. "I am not your weapon to forge, chairman. Nor am I your enemy to defeat." The room fell silent. The chairman slowly lowered his knife, a smile spreading across his face. "There he is," he said quietly. "The Monarch." The shadow soldiers remained in position, awaiting Naruto's command. He could feel them, extensions of his will, ready to strike or defend. "Disperse," he ordered, and they melted back into his shadow, which returned to normal dimensions. The chairman nodded approvingly. "Better. But still too slow, too conscious. The shadows should be as natural to you as breathing. Give me a break. I've been doing this for 3 days. You've been doing it for eons, if what we believe is true. You've just forgotten." The chairman sheathed his knife. "Again. This time, don't wait for the attack to respond. Anticipate it." They trained for hours. The chairman was relentless, pushing Naruto to call upon his shadows faster, to form more complex constructs, to maintain them for longer periods. By the end, Naruto was drenched in sweat, his muscles trembling with exhaustion, but his shadow responded almost instantaneously to his will. "Enough for today," the chairman finally said. "Rest. Eat. Tomorrow will be more intensive." As the chairman left, Kakashi approached. "You okay?" "Yeah," Naruto managed, though he felt like he'd fought a war. "Just tired." "That was impressive," Hae-In said, joining them. "I've never seen anyone master shadow manipulation so quickly, not even S-rank hunters." "I don't think I mastered anything," Naruto admitted. "It's more like, remembering. Like my body knows what to do, even if my mind doesn't." "That tracks with the reincarnation theory," she agreed. "Your soul remembers, even if your conscious mind doesn't." Kakashi's eye narrowed. "This Jinwoo who's coming, how dangerous is he, really?" Hae-In's expression turned serious. "He single-handedly defeated an S-rank gate when an entire hunter team failed. He's fought monarchs from other realms and won. No hunter in recorded history has ever matched his power." "Great," Naruto groaned. "And he wants to kill me because I might have had his job first." "We don't know what he wants," Hae-In corrected. "But the chairman is right about one thing, you need to be prepared for anything." As they left the training room, Naruto couldn't shake the feeling that, prepared, was something he would never truly be. Not for this. The shadow powers might be coming more naturally, but the memories attached to them remained fragmented, incomplete. Who had he been, really? What had he done with these powers in that past life? And most importantly, why had he fallen? That night, Naruto sat cross-legged on his bed, eyes closed, focusing inward. The chairman had advised meditation to strengthen his connection to the shadows, but Naruto had another goal in mind. He slowed his breathing, letting his consciousness sink deeper, past the surface thoughts, past the day's experiences, into the place where the Nine-Tails dwelled. The familiar sewer landscape materialized around him, water ankle-deep, pipes running along the ceiling. But something was different. The usual orange-red glow was interspersed with tendrils of blue-black shadow that hadn't been there before. He followed them to the massive gate that contained the Nine-Tails. The fox was awake, massive red eyes watching Naruto approach. So, the Nine-Tails rumbled, the Shadow King returns. Naruto stopped before the gate. You know about that? Of course I know. The fox's laugh echoed through the chamber. Did you think beings like us were unaware of each other? The Bijou may be powerful, but we're young compared to the monarchs. Then who am I? Who was I? The Nine-Tails leaned closer to the bars. You were the first. Before Ashborn, before the system of hunters and gates, you ruled the boundary between life and death. The shadows were yours to command, the dead yours to raise. But I fell. Why? Because you made a choice that others disagreed with. The fox's eyes narrowed. You chose to protect humanity against the will of the other monarchs. Naruto blinked in surprise. I protected humans. Don't sound so shocked. Even then, your soul had that same irritating compassion it does now. The Nine-Tails settled back. The monarchs were meant to maintain balance between realms, humans, demons, beasts, all the worlds that exist. But the others began to see humans as pests, unworthy of existence. You disagreed. So they attacked me. They united against you. Even then, you might have won, had Ashborn not betrayed you. The name sent a spike of cold anger through Naruto. Ashborn. My general. Your most trusted. He coveted your throne, your power. When the others attacked, he stood aside, then claimed your mantle after you fell. The fox's voice lowered. But you were clever. Instead of dying, you cast yourself into the cycle of human reincarnation, sealing away your powers and memories until the time was right to reclaim your throne. And you're telling me this, why? Naruto asked suspiciously. Since when do you help me? The Nine-Tails smiled, showing massive teeth. Because Kurama remembers the primordial shadow monarch. Remembers when even the Bijou bowed to your authority. And because if you regain your full power, even I might finally be free of this cage. You're hoping I'll release you. I'm betting on survival. The monarchs are stirring again, Shadow King. Not just Ashborn and his puppet Jinwoo, but the others too. The gates are their doing, tears in reality as they prepare for war. War against what? Against you. Against humans. Against anything that threatens their vision of order. The fox's red eyes gleamed. You were powerful enough to challenge them once. With my power added to your returning shadows, you might be again. Naruto considered this. How do I know you're telling the truth? You don't. But as your memories return, you will. The Nine-Tails stretched. Now go. Your would-be killer approaches. Best be ready to face him. The sewer faded, and Naruto found himself back in his room, dawn light filtering through the blinds. He'd meditated all night without realizing it. A knock came at his door. Naruto. Kakashi called. You're needed downstairs. Immediately. Something in his teacher's tone made Naruto move quickly. He dressed and followed Kakashi to the main conference room, where tension hung in the air like a physical presence. The chairman stood at the head of the table, flanked by Hae-In and several other hunters Naruto had met during training. Dr. Kim sat to one side, looking nervous. What's happening? Naruto asked. He's here, Hae-In answered. Sung Jin-woo arrived an hour ago. He's demanding to see you. We've arranged a meeting in the containment chamber, the chairman added. Neutral territory, with safety measures in place. Safety measures won't matter if he decides to act, one of the other hunters muttered. Then why are we doing this? Kakashi asked. Why not leave? Return to our world? Because he would follow, the chairman said bluntly. Better to face him here, on terms we can somewhat control, than let him hunt you across dimensions. Naruto took a deep breath. Fine. Let's get this over with. As they moved toward the elevators, Hae-In fell into step beside him. Be careful what you say, she advised quietly. Jinwoo isn't just powerful, he's smart, observant. He'll be looking for any sign of hostility. I'm not planning to fight him. It may not be your choice. Her eyes met his, concern evident. Just, don't die, okay? The unexpected sentiment made him smile despite the circumstances. Wouldn't dream of it. The containment chamber was larger than Naruto had expected, circular and lined with the same strange symbols he'd seen in the training room. In the center stood a man who could only be Sung Jinwoo. He was younger than Naruto had imagined, perhaps in his mid-20s, dressed simply in black pants and a fitted gray shirt. No armor, no visible weapons. But the power radiating from him was unmistakable, cold, vast, oppressive. So, Jinwoo said as they entered, his voice exactly as Naruto remembered from his dreams. You're the anomaly everyone's talking about. Naruto stepped forward, Kakashi remaining close behind. I'm Naruto Uzumaki. I know who you are. The question is whether you know. Jinwoo circled him slowly, studying him from every angle. Your mana signature is familiar. Yet not. I'm still figuring that part out myself. Jinwoo stopped in front of him. They say you command shadows. Show me. It wasn't a request. Naruto glanced at the chairman, who nodded slightly. Focusing on the now familiar cold power within, Naruto extended his hand. His shadow spread across the floor, darkened, and from it rose 3 shadow soldiers, perfect in every detail from their armor to their weapons. Jinwoo's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes, recognition, perhaps. Or concern. Impressive, he said flatly. But crude. Unrefined. He made a slight gesture, and suddenly the chamber was filled with shadows, dozens of soldiers, knights, even massive shadow beasts that towered over them. This is what true mastery looks like. The display of power was intimidating, but Naruto refused to show fear. I'm not claiming to be a master. I only discovered these abilities recently. So the chairman tells me. Jinwoo dismissed his shadows with another gesture. What he couldn't tell me is why your mana signature contains patterns that match the oldest recorded gates. Patterns that predate Ashborn himself. Maybe because I came before, Naruto said, the words rising unbidden to his lips. Before Ashborn's betrayal. Before the war that ended the first age of monarchs. The temperature in the room seemed to drop. Jinwoo's eyes narrowed dangerously. You claim to be the original Shadow Monarch? I don't claim to be anything, Naruto countered. I'm just telling you what I've learned, what I've remembered. I was the primordial Shadow Monarch. Ashborn was my general. He betrayed me when the other monarchs attacked, then took my throne when I fell. Jinwoo was perfectly still, his expression unreadable. If that were true, and I'm not saying it is, it would mean everything I was told about my powers was a lie. Not a lie. Just an incomplete truth. For a long moment, Jinwoo was silent, his gaze never leaving Naruto's face. Then, unexpectedly, he smiled, a small, cold curve of his lips. Prove it. What? Prove you're who you claim to be. Access a power only the true originator of the shadow system would know. Naruto hesitated. I don't know if I can. My memories are still fragmented. Then you're not a threat. Just a curiosity. Jinwoo turned away dismissively. Keep him under observation, Chairman. If his powers grow, I want to know. Otherwise, he's your problem, not mine. Something about being dismissed so easily sparked anger in Naruto, not his usual righteous indignation, but something older, colder. Wait, he said, his voice deepening slightly. Jin-Woo paused but didn't turn around. The castle, Naruto said, images suddenly flooding his mind. The shadow castle at the edge of the void. You've never been able to access it, have you? No matter how strong you've become, that one place remains closed to you. Jin-Woo turned slowly, his expression now carefully blank. Go on. Because it wasn't Ashborn's to give you. It was mine. The true throne of shadows lies there, not in the realm Ashborn created. The words came faster now, memories surfacing like bubbles breaking water. The castle exists in the space between life and death, between reality and dream. Ashborn could visit, as my general, but never claim it. And neither can you. The air in the chamber grew heavy, charged with tension as the two shadow wielders faced each other. A good guess, Jin-Woo said finally. Based on legends any hunter might know. Not a guess, Naruto countered. A memory. Just like I remember the Oath of Shadows, the true one, not the modified version Ashborn created. Jin-Woo's eyes flashed. There is no true oath. There is only the contract between sovereign and shadow. Wrong. The original oath wasn't a contract. It was a covenant. Naruto closed his eyes, letting the words rise from that ancient part of himself. In darkness, we serve. In death, we arise. By shadow and soul, bound not by command but by choice, for the balance of all realms. When he opened his eyes, Jin-Woo was staring at him with undisguised shock. That's impossible, he whispered. Those words are in no record, no text. Because Ashborn struck them from history when he took my place. Naruto stepped closer. He changed the covenant to a contract, forced obedience rather than willing service. Ask your shadows if you don't believe me. Ask them who they would rather serve, the usurper's heir or the original king. Jin-Woo's shadow suddenly lashed out, wrapping around Naruto's throat like a vice. Enough. Kakashi moved to intervene, but the chairman held him back with a raised hand, watching the confrontation with calculating eyes. I am the Shadow Monarch, Jin-Woo said, his voice deadly quiet. Recognized by the system, chosen by Ashborn, proven through trial and combat. Whatever you were, whatever you claim to have been, those days are past. Despite the shadow constricting his breathing, Naruto maintained eye contact. Are they? Then why are the gates opening? Why are the barriers between worlds falling? The balance is broken, Jin-Woo. The old wars are returning. And neither of us will survive if we stand divided. Something in his words must have struck home, because the shadow around his throat loosened slightly. What do you mean, the old wars? Jin-Woo demanded. The monarchs are moving again. Not just you, not just shadows, but all of them. The gates are their doing, preparation for conflict. Naruto thought of the Nine-Tails words. They're coming for both of us. For all humans. Jin-Woo's shadow retreated entirely. He studied Naruto with new intensity. How do you know this? The same way I know the true oath. I remember. Pieces, fragments, but enough to see the pattern. Naruto held Jin-Woo's gaze steadily. I'm not your enemy. I don't want your throne. But I won't let the monarchs destroy everything I've sworn to protect, not in my past life, and not in this one. For several tense moments, Jin-Woo said nothing. Then, slowly, he nodded. We'll speak again, Naruto Uzumaki. Soon. He turned to the chairman. I'm returning to Korea. Keep me informed of any developments. And him, the chairman asked, indicating Naruto. For now, he stays where I can watch him. Where you can watch him. Jin-Woo's eyes met Naruto's one last time. If what he says is true, we all have bigger problems than disputed titles. With that, he left, his departure as sudden as his arrival. The tension in the room eased slightly, though no one seemed ready to relax completely. Well, Kakashi said dryly, that went better than expected. No one died. Don't celebrate yet, Hae-In warned. Jinwoo doesn't forgive perceived threats easily. He's reserving judgment, nothing more. The chairman approached Naruto, eyes narrowed in speculation. That oath you recited, it wasn't in any of our records, any of our texts. I know, Naruto said. It came from somewhere else. He tapped his temple. They're getting clearer, the memories. Especially when triggered by something familiar. Like meeting the current Shadow Monarch, the chairman mused. Interesting. Perhaps we need to accelerate your training further. No, Kakashi interjected firmly. Naruto needs rest. Time to process. Pushing harder could be dangerous. The chairman looked like he might argue, but Hae-In stepped forward. I agree with Kakashi. Let me take Naruto back to our world for a day or two. The familiar environment might help stabilize his condition. His condition is precisely why he should stay here, where we can monitor him, the chairman countered. With respect, sir, Hae-In pressed, Dr. Kim's reports show that the rate of shadow integration increases the longer he stays in our high mana environment. A brief return to his lower mana world could give his body time to adjust to the changes already occurring. The chairman considered this, then nodded reluctantly. 2 days. No more. And you go with them, Hunter Cha. Keep me informed of any developments. Yes, sir. As they left the containment chamber, Naruto felt lightheaded, the confrontation with Jinwoo having drained him more than he realized. Thanks, he said quietly to Hae-In. For getting me out of here. Don't thank me yet. Her expression was troubled. Jinwoo doesn't give up that easily. And there's something else, something the chairman isn't telling us about why he's so interested in your powers. Great. More mysteries. Look on the bright side, Kakashi offered. At least we get to go home for a bit. Home. The word brought mixed feelings now. Konoha was home, had always been home. But these emerging memories suggested another home too, the Shadow Castle Naruto had mentioned, a place he'd never seen in this life but somehow knew intimately. As they prepared to return through the gate, Naruto couldn't shake the feeling that home was becoming an increasingly complicated concept. The Konoha Gate facility had changed significantly in the days they'd been gone. What had started as a simple guarded perimeter was now a fortified compound with research equipment, barriers, and teams of shinobi working alongside unfamiliar figures in hunter gear. Looks like cooperation is going well, Kakashi observed as they stepped through. Tsunade was waiting for them, arms crossed, expression stern. About time you came back. Things have been happening. What kind of things? Naruto asked. Walk with me. She led them toward the Hokage Tower, briefing them as they went. 6 more gates have opened within Fire Country borders. Smaller ones, but still active. We've had incursions of these ant creatures at 3 locations, all contained with minimal casualties. The Hunter Association sent support teams. Hae-In asked, noting the hunters they passed. Yes. Your chairman has been surprisingly cooperative. Though I suspect his interest isn't entirely altruistic. Tsunade glanced at Naruto. How much did you learn about your condition? Enough to know it's complicated, Naruto replied. I'm apparently the original Shadow Monarch, before the current system existed. And my powers are returning, whether I want them to or not. That matches what our researchers have found. With help from the hunter scientists, we've been studying the gates. They all show traces of the same energy signature found in your shadow abilities. So the gates are connected to me somehow. To your original power, yes. Tsunade's expression grew more serious. But there's more. 3 days ago, a woman appeared at the eastern gate. Red skin, horns, called herself Esil. Naruto tensed. The demon from before. What did she want? To speak with you. When we told her you were gone, she said she'd wait. She's been camping outside the gate ever since, refusing to leave but not causing any trouble. Did she say anything else? Only that, they're coming, whatever that means, and that you'd need her knowledge to survive what's ahead. They reached the Hokage Tower and ascended to Tsunade's office. Through the window, Naruto could see Konoha spread out below, familiar, comforting, home. Yet somehow smaller than he remembered, more fragile. I need to talk to her, he decided. Esil. She seems to know more about my past than I do. I thought you might say that. Tsunade sighed. I've arranged for her to be brought here tomorrow morning. Under guard, of course. Of course. In the meantime, Tsunade continued, I want you to report everything you learned in the hunter world. Every detail, no matter how small. For the next hour, they debriefed, explaining the hunter system, the research findings, the confrontation with Jin Woo. Tsunade listened intently, occasionally making notes or asking clarifying questions. So this Jin Woo is essentially a god in their world? She asked when they finished. Not exactly a god, Hae-In corrected. But the most powerful hunter by several orders of magnitude. No one else comes close. And he sees Naruto as a threat to his position. For now, he's reserving judgment. But yes, that's the underlying tension. Tsunade rubbed her temples. As if we didn't have enough problems. She looked at Naruto. How are you handling all this? The question caught him off guard. Everyone had been so focused on what he was, what he could do, that no one had really asked how he felt about it. Honestly? It's weird. The memories that keep surfacing don't feel like mine, but they don't feel alien either. More like, dreams I had but forgot. He hesitated. And the powers themselves, they're getting easier to use. More natural. Is that good or bad? I don't know. He met her gaze. What I do know is that something bigger is happening. The gates, the monsters, Jin Woo, me, it's all connected to some ancient conflict that's starting up again. The monarchs, Hae-In supplied. Beings of immense power who govern different aspects of existence. Shadow, beast, ice, several others. According to our records, they've been dormant for centuries. Not dormant, Naruto corrected, another memory surfacing. Preparing. The last war ended in stalemate. This one. He trailed off, a chill running down his spine. This one what? Tsunade pressed. This one they intend to win. Completely. He looked out the window again, at the village he'd sworn to protect. And humans are their primary target. A heavy silence fell over the room. Get some rest, Tsunade finally said. All of you. Tomorrow we talk to this demon, see what she knows. Then we start making plans. As they left the Hokage Tower, Kakashi excused himself to check on developments at the gate facility, leaving Naruto and Hae-In to walk back toward the village center. So, Naruto said, gesturing to the streets around them, what do you think of Konoha? Hae-In looked around, taking in the mix of traditional architecture and newer buildings, the people going about their business despite the crisis brewing at their borders. It's peaceful, she said finally. Different from Seoul. Smaller, quieter, but there's a strength to it. That's what I've always fought to protect. Naruto's voice softened. Whatever I was before, whatever I might become, this is my home. These are my people. You sound like you're preparing to say goodbye to it. The observation was uncomfortably perceptive. Maybe I am. Dr. Kim said I'm becoming more shadow than human. What does that mean for my future here? I don't know, she admitted. But I do know you're not the type to abandon what you care about. Not from what I've seen. They walked in companionable silence for a while, passing shops closing for the evening, restaurants filling with dinner crowds. Normal life, continuing despite everything. "Are you hungry?" Naruto asked suddenly. "Because I know the best ramen place in the entire world." Hae-In smiled, the first genuine smile he'd seen from her. "Lead the way." Ichiraku Ramen was as warm and inviting as always, Teuchi greeting Naruto like the prodigal son returning. "Naruto. Where have you been hiding? And who's your friend?" The old chef's eyes twinkled knowingly. "This is Hae-In. She's a hunter from another world." "Long story." Naruto took his usual seat. "Two specials, please." As Teuchi prepared their food, Hae-In looked around the small establishment with interest. "You come here often?" "Since I was a kid. When most of the village still saw me as the demon fox, Teuchi and I treated me like a person." The memory brought a fond smile. Some things don't change, no matter what else does. Their ramen arrived, steaming and aromatic. Hae-In took a cautious bite, then her eyes widened in surprise. "This is, really good." "Told you," Naruto grinned, already halfway through his bowl. "Best in the world." They ate in comfortable silence for a while, the simple pleasure of good food providing a brief respite from the weight of ancient conflicts and emerging powers. "Can I ask you something?" Hae-In said eventually. "Something personal?" "Sure. If you could choose, keep your human life here or reclaim your position as the original Shadow Monarch, which would you pick?" Naruto set down his chopsticks, considering the question seriously. "A week ago, I would have said human life, no question. Now." He sighed. "I don't think it's that simple anymore. These powers, these memories, they're part of me too. And if what we suspect about the monarchs is true, I might need to embrace that side fully to protect what I care about here." "That's not really an answer," she observed. "No, it's not." He smiled ruefully. "Truth is, I don't know. But I do know I won't let anyone, not Jinwoo, not Ashborn, not any monarch, threaten the people I care about. Human or shadow, that part of me doesn't change." Hae-In studied him for a moment, then nodded. "For what it's worth, I think that's the right answer." After dinner, they walked through the village as night fell. Lanterns lit the streets, casting warm glows that pushed back the darkness. Or seemed to. Naruto was becoming increasingly aware of the shadows between those lights, of their depth and potential. "Where are you staying?" he asked as they reached the main residential district. "The Hokage arranged quarters near the gate facility." "That's a long walk from here. I can show you a shortcut." They turned down a smaller street, less traveled at this hour. As they walked, Naruto felt a sudden prickle of awareness, a disturbance in the shadows ahead. He stopped, arm outstretched to halt Hae-In as well. "We're not alone." She tensed, hand moving to her sword. "Enemies?" "Not sure yet." Naruto focused on the shadows, reaching out with his newly awakening senses. "There's something familiar." From the darkness ahead, a figure emerged, slender, female, with pale red skin and small horns. "Esil." "Found you," she said, smiling that sharp-toothed smile. "Again." Hae-In drew her sword in one fluid motion. "You were supposed to stay at the gate." "I got bored." Esil shrugged, utterly unconcerned by the blade pointed at her. "And I sensed my king was back in this realm." "I'm not your king," Naruto said automatically. "Not yet," Esil agreed. "But more than you were. I can feel the difference. Your shadow grows stronger by the day." "What do you want, demon?" Hae-In demanded. "To help, of course." Esil's black eyes fixed on Naruto. "The other monarchs are mobilizing faster than expected. Ashborn knows you're awakening, Jinwoo made sure of that. They'll be coming for you soon." "Why would you help me?" Naruto asked. "What's in it for you?" Survival, 4-1. Esil's expression turned serious. If the monarchs win this war, demons will fare no better than humans. We're just another imperfection in their vision of order. And? Naruto pressed, sensing there was more. And I served you loyally before your fall. Some oaths transcend death and rebirth. Hae-In's sword hadn't lowered. How do we know we can trust you? You don't. Esil smiled again. But he will, once he remembers. Until then, I'm content to prove myself. Prove yourself how? Naruto asked. By telling you what's coming next. 3 days from now, a new gate will open, larger than any you've seen. From it will emerge one of Ashborn's lieutenants, sent to test your strength and resolve. A test? Ashborn won't move against you directly, not yet. First, he'll measure you, gauge how much of your former power has returned. Esil's eyes gleamed in the darkness. It's your chance to send a message. To show him that the true Shadow Monarch isn't as forgotten as he hoped. Before Naruto could respond, a new voice called from behind them. Naruto? Is that you? He turned to see Sakura approaching, her expression shifting from friendly to wary as she took in the scene, Hae-In with drawn sword, the demon standing in shadows. Everything okay here? Sakura asked, tension evident in her stance. It's fine, Naruto assured her. Just an unexpected meeting. Sakura, this is Esil, the demon I mentioned in the report. And this is Hae-In, a hunter from the other world. Sakura nodded to Hae-In but kept her eyes on Esil. The Hokage's been looking for you, she told the demon. You were supposed to wait at the gate. So I've been told. Esil seemed amused. Such concern for protocols in the face of approaching apocalypse. Charming. 3 days, Naruto interjected, bringing the conversation back to Esil's warning. You're certain? Absolutely. Sunrise, at the main gate near your village. Come prepared for battle. The demon's expression softened slightly. I'll be there too. To help, if you'll allow it. With that, she stepped backward into the shadows and vanished, not moving through them but becoming part of them, a trick Naruto recognized from his own emerging abilities. Well, she's dramatic, Sakura commented into the silence that followed. All demons are, Hae-In said, finally sheathing her sword. It's their nature. You believe her? Sakura asked Naruto. About this attack coming? Yeah, I do. He couldn't explain why, but something about Esil's warning rang true. We should prepare, just in case. I'll inform Lady Tsunade. Sakura glanced between Naruto and Hae-In. Unless you were in the middle of something. No, they said simultaneously, then looked at each other awkwardly. Sakura's lips twitched. Right. Well, I'll leave you to your not something then. Naruto, mission briefing tomorrow at 9. Don't be late. As she walked away, Hae-In raised an eyebrow. Friend of yours? Teammate. We've known each other since we were kids. Naruto resumed walking, leading them toward Hae-In's quarters. She's one of the people I'd do anything to protect. You have many of those, Hae-In observed. Friends. Comrades. People who care about you. I guess I do. The Shadow Monarch in my world isn't like that. Jinwoo has people he protects, family he cares for, but he stands apart. Isolated by his power. Sounds lonely. It is. But perhaps necessary. She gave him a sidelong glance. Can you really be both? The Shadow Monarch and Naruto Uzumaki? The ancient power and the human shinobi? I have to be, he answered simply. Because I'm not giving up either. They reached the guest quarters, a simple but comfortable building near the gate facility. Hae-In paused at the entrance. Thank you for showing me your village, she said. It helps me understand why you fight so hard to protect it. Anytime. Naruto grinned. Next time I'll show you the Hokage monument. Best view in Konoha. I'd like that. She hesitated, then added, Naruto. Whatever happens in 3 days, be careful. Jinwoo once faced one of Ashborn's lieutenants. It nearly killed him, and that was after he'd mastered his powers. I'll be ready, he promised. Besides, I'll have help. You, Kakashi-sensei, my friend's here, and apparently a demon who thinks I'm her long-lost king. Quite the army, she said with a small smile. It's a start. He turned to leave, then paused. Hae-In. Thanks for believing in me. Even when I'm not sure I believe in myself. She nodded, a hint of color touching her cheeks. 9 tomorrow, at the Hokage Tower. Yeah. Don't be late, he echoed Sakura's words with a grin. As he walked back toward his apartment, Naruto felt the shadows around him more keenly than ever, not as darkness to be feared but as extensions of himself, alive with potential. He extended his senses into them experimentally and found he could feel the entire village this way, every shadow connected, a vast network of awareness. It was both exhilarating and terrifying, this growing power. And in 3 days, apparently, he would need to use it against one of Ashborn's lieutenants. A test, Esil had called it. A chance to send a message. But what message did he want to send? That he was reclaiming his throne? That he was a threat to be reckoned with? Or simply that he would protect what was his, regardless of ancient titles and powers? The Shadow King or the human shinobi, the choice didn't seem as binary as everyone made it out to be. Perhaps he could be both. Perhaps he needed to be both. 3 days to prepare. 3 days to decide what kind of monarch, what kind of man, he would be. The morning meeting with Esil was tense but productive. Under heavy guard in the Hokage's office, the demon elaborated on her warning, providing details about the lieutenant they could expect, a being called Igris, one of Ashborn's most powerful generals. He commands a legion of shadow knights, Esil explained. And wields a great sword that can cut through dimensions. In raw power, he rivals your S-rank hunters. I know Igris, Hae-In said, surprise evident in her voice. He's one of Jinwoo's shadow generals now. Esil smiled coldly. Jinwoo has a copy, yes. A shade extracted from Ashborn's memories. The real Igris serves Ashborn directly, has done so since. She glanced at Naruto. Since the first Shadow Monarch fell. Since I fell, Naruto corrected, accepting the connection. Was he loyal to me before that? Absolutely. All the Shadow Generals were. Until Ashborn turned them against you. Tsunade, who had been listening silently, finally spoke. This attack, what's its purpose? To kill Naruto? To test him, Esil replied. Ashborn won't commit to direct conflict until he knows how much of the original monarch's power has returned. If Naruto proves too weak, Igris will kill him. If he shows potential but remains vulnerable, Ashborn will likely offer terms, submission in exchange for continued existence. And if I'm strong enough? Naruto asked. Then war becomes inevitable. Ashborn cannot allow a rival shadow monarch to exist, especially not the original whom he betrayed. Esil's black eyes fixed on Naruto. But there's another possibility. If you defeat Igris decisively enough, you might reclaim him. Reclaim him? Turn him back to your service. The Shadow General's loyalty to Ashborn was forced, not chosen, a perversion of the original covenant. Esil's voice took on a reverent quality. Under the true Shadow Monarch, shadows served by choice, bound by respect, not compulsion. The room fell silent as everyone absorbed this information. How do we prepare? Kakashi asked practically. 3 days isn't much time. I need to train, Naruto said immediately. Push my shadow abilities as far as I can before the confrontation. I can help with that, Esil offered. I served as your combat instructor once, in the old days. I remember techniques Ashborn himself has forgotten. And I can provide insights on how Jinwoo's shadows operate, Hae-In added. If Ashborn's forces are similar, it could be valuable. Tsunade nodded. Approved. Naruto, you'll train with both of them. Kakashi will supervise. I want daily reports on progress and any developments in your condition. What about the village? Naruto asked. If this Igris is as powerful as Esil says, there could be collateral damage. We're establishing a containment zone around the gate. Civilian evacuation plans are already in motion, disguised as a drill. Tsunade's expression was grim but determined. We've faced worse threats and survived, Naruto. We'll weather this one too. The meeting concluded with assignments distributed, Naruto to train with Esil and Hae-In, Kakashi to coordinate defense preparations, Sakura to work with medical teams on emergency response. As they left the Hokage Tower, Esil fell into step beside Naruto. Your human leader is impressive, she remarked. Decisive, strategic. You choose your allies well. Tsunade's more than just an ally, Naruto replied. She's family, in all the ways that matter. Family, Esil repeated the word as if testing its flavor. You didn't have that before, you know. Family. The Shadow Monarch stood alone, above all connections. Well, this Shadow Monarch doesn't. And won't. Esil's sharp-toothed smile returned. And that, my king, is why you'll win this time. Ashborn expects the monarch he betrayed, solitary, proud, powerful but isolated. He doesn't understand what you've become in this life. They reached the training grounds, a large clearing at the village outskirts that had been secured for their use. Hae-In was already there, practicing forms with her sword, elegant, deadly movements that spoke of years of discipline. She paused when she saw them. Ready to begin? As I'll ever be, Naruto replied. For the next several hours, he trained harder than he ever had before. Esil proved to be a demanding instructor, pushing him to expand his shadow manipulation in ways he hadn't considered, not just creating soldiers but reshaping the shadows themselves, using them as extensions of his body, as weapons, as shields. The shadows aren't separate from you, she explained as Naruto struggled to maintain a complex formation. They're part of you, as much as your arm or leg. Stop thinking of them as things you create and start feeling them as things you are. Hae-In's contribution was more technical, insights into how shadow creatures fought, their strengths and weaknesses, strategies for countering their abilities. Igris will be faster than you expect, she warned. When Jinwoo summons him, his speed exceeds even S-rank hunters. And his sword techniques are flawless. By evening, Naruto was exhausted but satisfied with his progress. His shadow control had improved dramatically, and he'd managed to sustain more complex constructs for longer periods. Tomorrow we work on command authority, Esil announced as they concluded the session. The ability to dominate other shadows, to turn them from their master to yourself. Is that possible? Hae-In asked skeptically. Jinwoo's shadows are bound to him completely. I've never seen anything override that connection. Jinwoo is the inheritor of a corrupt system, Esil replied. The original Shadow Monarch, she nodded to Naruto, didn't bind shadows, he called them. They answered out of respect, not compulsion. That authority, if recovered, can override Ashborn's commands. If, Hae-In emphasized. When, Esil corrected with confidence. As they left the training ground, Naruto noticed Hae-In glancing repeatedly at Esil, her expression troubled. Something wrong? He asked when the demon moved ahead. I don't trust her, Hae-In admitted quietly. She seems devoted to you, but demons are notorious manipulators. How do we know her information is accurate? Her training effective? We don't, not completely. Naruto watched Esil walking ahead, her movements graceful despite her inhuman nature. But I have this feeling, like I've known her before. Trusted her before. Memories from your past life? Maybe. Or maybe something else. He shrugged. Either way, right now she's our best source of information about what I'm facing. Just be careful, Hae-In advised. Even loyal servants can have hidden agendas. They parted ways at the village center, Esil heading toward the secure quarters that had been arranged for her, Hae-In returning to the gate facility. Naruto, despite his exhaustion, found himself reluctant to go home. Instead, he made his way to the Hokage monument, climbing to the top to look out over Konoha as night fell. The village lights came on one by one, pushing back the darkness. Except Naruto could still see the shadows, could feel them, more vibrant and alive than the lights that supposedly banished them. In some ways, the village looked more real, more complete, through this shadow awareness than it ever had to his normal vision. Beautiful view. He turned to find Hae-In approaching. I thought you went back to the facility. I did. Then I decided I wanted to see this best view in Konoha you mentioned. She sat beside him on the stone head of the fourth Hokage, his father, though few knew that connection. It's better during the day, Naruto said. You can see all the way to the borders on a clear morning. I like it at night too. She looked out over the village. The lights remind me of stars. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, the cool night air carrying the sense of the forest beyond the village. You're worried, Hae-In observed eventually. That obvious, huh? To someone who's been watching you, yes. She drew her knees up, wrapping her arms around them. You don't have to face Igris alone, you know. I'll fight with you. The offer touched him. Thanks. But this feels like something I need to do myself. To prove something. To understand something. Naruto looked down at his hand, summoning a small shadow that danced across his palm. Every time I use these powers, I feel more connected to who I was before. Like pieces of a puzzle clicking into place. And if you don't like the picture when it's complete? It was the same fear he'd expressed to Sakura days earlier. Then I change it. Redefine what the Shadow Monarch can be. Hae-In studied him for a moment, then smiled. You know, when I first met you, I thought you were dangerous. A threat to both our worlds. And now? Now I think you might be their best hope. She hesitated, then added softly, if anyone can be both the Shadow King and the human hero, it's you, Naruto Uzumaki. The vote of confidence meant more than he expected. High praise from an S-rank hunter. Just an observation, she replied, but her small smile remained. They talked into the night, sharing stories of their respective worlds, Naruto's adventures as a genin, Hae-In's experiences hunting gates, the strange parallels between lives that had developed in completely different realms. It was easy, comfortable, a momentary respite from the weight of ancient conflicts and emerging powers. When they finally descended from the monument, the village was quiet, most residents asleep. Naruto walked Hae-In back toward her quarters, their conversation continuing in hushed tones. Tomorrow's training will be harder, she warned. Esil wants to push your limits further. I can handle it. I know you can. Just. She stopped, turning to face him. Don't lose yourself in the process. The Shadow King may be returning, but Naruto is the one she cut herself off, looking away. The one you what? He prompted gently. Instead of answering, she reached up, her hand brushing his cheek softly. Just be careful. Some changes can't be undone. Before he could respond, she turned and continued walking, leaving him standing in the street, the ghost of her touch lingering on his skin. The next 2 days passed in a blur of intensive training. True to her word, Esil pushed Naruto's abilities to their limit and beyond, focusing on command authority, the power to override another Shadow Master's control. Feel the connection, she instructed as Naruto faced a shadow construct she had created. Not just to your own shadows, but to all shadows. They recognize their true king, even if they don't remember it consciously. It was difficult, frustrating work. The theory made sense, but the application proved elusive. By the end of the second day, Naruto had managed to briefly control one of Esil's simpler constructs, but nothing approaching what would be needed against Igris. "It's not working," he said, frustration evident. "Maybe I just can't do it anymore." "You can," Esil insisted. "You're thinking too much like a human, trying to force it through will alone. The Shadow Covenant isn't about domination, it's about recognition. They need to recognize you as the true monarch. And how do I make that happen? By remembering who you truly are." Esil's black eyes fixed on his. "The memories are there, buried deep. We need to bring them to the surface." "How?" "There's a technique, risky, but effective. A shadow immersion that can trigger a full memory cascade." She glanced at Hae-In, who had been observing nearby. "But it would leave you vulnerable during the process." "For how long?" Hae-In asked sharply. "Hours. Perhaps longer." "That's too dangerous," Hae-In objected immediately. "Igris arrives tomorrow at dawn. If Naruto is incapacitated, if he faces Igris without his full power, he'll die," Esil countered flatly. "And your world will follow soon after." Naruto considered the options. "What exactly does this immersion involve?" "Your consciousness enters the shadow realm directly, not through dreams or meditation, but completely. There, the memories that have been sealed away can resurface naturally." Esil's expression turned solemn. "I can guide you in, but coming back depends entirely on your strength of will." It was a gamble. A dangerous one. But with Igris arriving tomorrow and his command authority still weak. "I'll do it," Naruto decided. "Tonight." "Naruto, think about this," Hae-In urged. "If something goes wrong, we don't have a choice." He met her concerned gaze steadily. "I need to be ready tomorrow, and this is the best chance we have." Preparations were made quickly. They relocated to a secure room in the Hokage Tower, where Tsunade herself insisted on monitoring the procedure alongside Sakura and Kakashi. Esil drew complex shadow runes around a central circle where Naruto would lie. "Once you enter the shadow realm, follow my voice," she instructed. "I'll guide you to the memories, but I can't access them for you. You must find them yourself." Naruto nodded, settling into the center of the circle. "How will I know when I've found them?" "You'll know." Esil's voice softened. "Trust yourself, my king. Your true self has been waiting for this moment for centuries." As the preparations concluded, Hae-In approached. "I still think this is reckless," she said quietly. "Probably," Naruto agreed with a small smile. "But when have I ever done things the easy way? Just, come back." Her hand found his, squeezing briefly. "Promise me that much." "I promise." The sincerity in her eyes stirred something in him, a connection he hadn't expected but found himself valuing more each day. Esil began the ritual, shadows swirling around the circle, growing denser, more substantial. Naruto lay back, letting the darkness envelop him as Esil's voice chanted words in a language he didn't recognize but somehow understood. "Find the path. Follow the echoes. Remember who you were. Remember who you are." The shadows closed over him completely, and Naruto felt himself falling, not physically, but mentally, his consciousness separating from his body, descending into pure darkness. For a timeless moment, there was nothing. No sight, no sound, no sensation. Then, gradually, awareness returned, but different. He perceived the shadow realm not through human senses but through essence, through connection. "Follow my voice," Esil called, the sound seeming to come from everywhere and nowhere. Naruto turned, or thought he turned, toward the sound, moving through the darkness with growing confidence. As he progressed, the emptiness gave way to structures, vast, sweeping landscapes of shadow, mountains and valleys formed of darkness given form. And memories. Flashes at first, brief glimpses of a life not his own. But as he moved deeper, they grew stronger, more coherent. Standing before an army of shadows, commanding them not as tools but as companions in battle. Creating the first shadow soldiers, not from death but from willing sacrifice, warriors who chose to serve beyond their mortal lifespans. Building the shadow castle at the edge of the void, a sanctuary where the dead could find peace and purpose. The memories came faster now, a flood rather than a trickle. And with them came understanding, of who he had been, of what he had built, of why he had fallen. He saw the other monarchs, beings of immense power who governed different aspects of existence. Saw their growing disdain for humanity, their plans to reshape reality without the imperfection of mortal life. Saw his own decision to stand against them, to protect the human worlds even at the cost of his position, his power. And he saw Ashborn, once his most trusted general, his right hand, his friend. Saw the jealousy growing in him, the ambition, the betrayal when the other monarchs attacked. They will destroy everything, Ashborn had argued. Join them, and at least something will survive. I will not sacrifice humanity for convenience, he had replied. Some principles are worth dying for. Then die you shall, Ashborn had said, turning his shadow blade against his king for the first time. The battle that followed had shaken reality itself, monarch against monarch, shadow against shadow. In the end, outnumbered and betrayed, he had fallen. But not before enacting one final, desperate plan. Rather than die completely, he had cast his essence into the cycle of reincarnation, sealing his powers and memories until the time was right to return. Until the monarchs threatened humanity once more. That time had come. With the memories came power, not new, but remembered. The true extent of what it meant to be the primordial shadow monarch, the original ruler of death and darkness. He felt his consciousness expanding, connecting to shadows across dimensions, across worlds. Felt the shadow soldiers respond to his awakened presence, even those bound to Ashborn, to Jinwu. And he felt something else, a presence approaching the physical world where his body lay waiting. A powerful shadow entity. Igris. The lieutenant was arriving early, sensing the ritual perhaps, seeking to strike while Naruto was vulnerable. Naruto. Esil's voice reached him through the darkness. You must return now. Igris has come ahead of schedule. Your friends are in danger. The urgency in her voice cut through the flood of memories. Naruto focused on his physical body, on the room in the Hokage Tower, on the people waiting for him there. The journey back seemed to take both an eternity and an instant. He opened his eyes to chaos. The room was in shambles, one wall completely destroyed. Through the gap, he could see the night sky and the village beyond, and a massive gate hovering above Konoha, pulsing with sinister energy. Kakashi and Sakura stood defensively near him, while Tsunade faced the intruder, a towering figure in ornate black armor, wielding a greatsword that seemed to cut through reality itself. Igris. Hae-In was engaged directly with the Shadow General, her sword glowing with energy as she fought desperately to keep him from reaching Naruto. But she was outmatched, her movements growing slower as exhaustion and injury took their toll. Esil stood at the edge of the ruined room, maintaining a shadow barrier around Naruto's still recovering form. My king, she said, relief evident in her voice. You've returned just in time. Naruto rose, feeling different, stronger, more connected to the shadows around him. The memories from the ritual remained, integrated now with his human consciousness. He wasn't just Naruto anymore, but he wasn't just the Shadow Monarch either. He was both, merged into something new. Get back, he ordered his friends. All of you. Something in his voice, the power, the authority, made them obey instantly. Even Igris paused, his featureless helmet turning toward Naruto. So, Naruto said, stepping forward. Ashborn couldn't even wait until dawn. Had to strike while he thought I was helpless. Igris said nothing, shadow generals rarely spoke, but his stance shifted, sword at the ready. I remember you, Naruto continued, circling slowly. You were one of my finest generals before Ashborn turned you against me. Loyal. Honorable. This skulking attack doesn't suit you, Igris. The Shadow General lunged suddenly, his great sword whistling through the air with impossible speed. Naruto didn't dodge, didn't need to. His own shadow rose, forming a perfect replica of Igris's sword that met the original with a thunderous clash. I remember something else too, Naruto said, pressing forward as their swords remained locked. I remember the oath you swore to me. Not to Ashborn. To me. Igris broke away, attacking again with a complex series of strikes that would have overwhelmed any normal opponent. But Naruto wasn't normal anymore. His shadow weapons met each blow, his movements matching the general's speed perfectly. In darkness, we serve, Naruto recited, voice resonating with power. In death, we arise. By shadow and soul, bound not by command but by choice, for the balance of all realms. Igris faltered momentarily, his sword dipping. You remember, Naruto pressed. You remember the true covenant, before Ashborn corrupted it into servitude. The Shadow General attacked again, but there was hesitation in his movements now, confusion in his stance. Naruto caught the massive blade in one hand, not his physical hand, but one formed of pure shadow essence that extended from his body. With his other hand, he reached out, touching Igris's armored chest. Remember who you served first, he commanded. Remember your true king. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, slowly, the Shadow General sank to one knee, his sword lowering. My king, a voice echoed from within the helmet, ancient, solemn. You have returned. Relief washed through Naruto. It had worked. The command authority had worked. But the victory was short-lived. Igris's form suddenly convulsed, black energy crackling around him like lightning. He pulls me back, the general grated out. Ashborn, his contract binds me still. Naruto could feel it, the connection between Igris and Ashborn, a chain of shadow energy pulling the general back toward his current master. Fight it, Naruto urged. You served me by choice once. You can again. I cannot break the binding alone. Igris's form was already beginning to dissolve, returning to the gate. But I recognize you now, true king. And others will too. Return to the castle. Reclaim your throne. Only then can you free us all. With those final words, Igris dissipated completely, his essence drawn back through the gate, which pulsed once more then vanished from the sky above Konoha. Silence fell over the ruined room. Naruto stood motionless, processing what had happened, what he had learned. Naruto. Tsunade approached cautiously. Are you alright? He turned to her, knowing his eyes must look different now, flecked with shadow, reflecting the power that had awakened fully within him. I remember everything, he said quietly. Who I was. What happened. Why I'm here now. And? Kakashi prompted. And we're in more danger than I thought. Naruto looked toward the spot where the gate had been. That wasn't just a test. It was a message. Ashborn knows I've awakened, and he's already moving against me, against all of us. What do we do? Sakura asked. Naruto's expression hardened with determination. We prepare for war. And I need to find the Shadow Castle, the true seat of the Shadow Monarch's power. Without it, I can influence individual shadows like Igris, but I can't break Ashborn's hold on the system itself. The castle exists. Hae-In asked, surprise evident in her voice. I thought it was just a legend. It's real, Esil confirmed. Hidden between dimensions, accessible only to the true monarch, or those he brings with him. How do we find it? Kakashi asked practically. We don't, Naruto replied. I do. Alone. Not a chance, Tsunade said immediately. After what just happened. It has to be me, Naruto insisted. The castle responds only to the Shadow Monarch. Anyone else trying to enter would be destroyed. He's right, Esil added. The Shadow Castle's defenses were created specifically to prevent Ashborn from claiming it. Only Naruto can safely navigate the path. Hae-In stepped forward. When? Tomorrow, Naruto decided. I need to recover from the ritual first, gather my strength. And after you find this castle? Tsunade asked. What then? Then I claim what's mine. Naruto's voice carried a new authority, a certainty that hadn't been there before. And I challenge Ashborn directly, not just for the throne of shadows, but for the fate of both our worlds. The room fell silent again, the weight of his words settling over everyone. The conflict that had been brewing was no longer abstract, no longer distant. It had come to Konoha's doorstep, and Naruto stood at the center of it, not just as a shinobi of the hidden leaf, but as the primordial shadow monarch reborn. A defender of two worlds now, with the power of both at his command. And a war unlike any they had faced before looming on the horizon. Chapter 3, Monarch's Reckoning. Morning came too quickly. Naruto stood at his apartment window, watching the sun rise over Konoha. The village looked peaceful, oblivious to the cosmic war brewing at its borders. He barely slept, too wired from the shadow immersion, too haunted by the recovered memories of a life lived eons ago. He flexed his hand, watching shadows dance between his fingers. The power flowed more naturally now, an extension of himself rather than a foreign ability. After the ritual and the confrontation with Igris, the final barriers in his mind had crumbled. He remembered everything, his reign as the original Shadow Monarch, the creation of the Shadow Army, Ashborn's betrayal, and his own desperate gambit to reincarnate rather than die completely. A knock at his door interrupted his thoughts. It's open, he called, already knowing who it was. Hae-In entered, dressed in her full hunter gear, sword at her hip. She looked like she hadn't slept either. You're really doing this? I have to. Naruto turned from the window. The Shadow Castle is the key. Without it, I can't challenge Ashborn directly. And I still can't come with you. It wasn't a question, but Naruto answered anyway. No. The path there isn't physical, it runs through the deepest shadow realm. Only beings with shadow affinity can survive it. Beings like Esil, Hae-In noted, a hint of something, jealousy, in her voice. Yeah. She's coming as my guide. She's been there before. Hae-In stepped closer. You trust her that much? I do now. Naruto tapped his temple. The memories confirm it. She served me loyally for centuries before my fall. Was one of the few who didn't turn to Ashborn afterward. That's why she was so eager to find you. Partly. But there's more to it. Naruto smiled wryly. Turns out the Shadow Monarch and the Demon Realm had an understanding, protection in exchange for service. When I fell and Ashborn took over, he abandoned that covenant. The demons have been vulnerable ever since. So she has practical reasons to want you back on the throne. Everyone has practical reasons, Hae-In. Even you. She didn't deny it. The Hunter Association wants stability. If that means supporting you against Ashborn, they will. But if you become the greater threat, they'll turn against me too. Naruto's smile didn't reach his eyes. Politics doesn't change, even across dimensions. A silence fell between them, heavy with unspoken concerns. How long will you be gone? She finally asked. Time works differently in the Shadow Realm. Could be hours here, days there. Or the reverse. He reached out, touching her arm lightly. But I'll come back. I promised, remember? I remember. Her expression softened slightly. Just, be careful. This isn't just about reclaiming a throne. It's about who you become in the process. I know. He met her eyes steadily. I'm not giving up being Naruto. Whatever power I gain, whatever throne I reclaim, I'm still me. I hope so. She hesitated, then leaned forward, pressing a brief kiss to his cheek. For luck, she explained, a hint of color touching her face. Before Naruto could respond, another knock came at the door. Your demon awaits, Hae-In said, stepping back. Esil entered without waiting for permission, her red skin almost glowing in the morning light. It's time, my king. The path will be clearest at the conjunction of dawn and shadow. Naruto nodded. I'm ready. He grabbed his gear, more from habit than necessity, as his shadow powers now vastly outstripped any physical weapons. I'll tell the others you've gone, Hae-In said. We'll continue preparations here for whatever comes next. Thank you. Naruto turned to leave, then paused, looking back at her. When I return, there are things we should talk about. Things that can't wait much longer. Her eyes widened slightly, understanding his meaning. I'll be here. With that promise hanging between them, Naruto followed Esil out into the morning light, toward the gate where his journey to reclaim his throne would begin. The main gate facility had been cleared of all personnel except for essential guards. Tsunade waited at the entrance, arms crossed, expression stern. Last chance to take backup, she said as Naruto approached. Kakashi is ready. So are several ANBU squads. They wouldn't survive the journey, Naruto replied. But thanks. For understanding why I have to do this. Understanding doesn't mean liking it. She uncrossed her arms, her stance softening slightly. Just come back in one piece, brat. The village needs its future Hokage. The title, one he'd dreamed of since childhood, now carried complicated implications. Could he still be Hokage if he was also the Shadow Monarch? Naruto pushed the question aside for later. I'll be back before you know it, he promised. Keep an eye on the gates while I'm gone. If more open, we know the drill. Containment protocols are in place. Tsunade nodded to Esil. Demon. You bring him back safely, or there won't be a realm you can hide in where I won't find you. Esil smiled, showing sharp teeth. I've served him for millennia, human. Your concern, while admirable, is unnecessary. They proceeded into the facility, past security checkpoints, to the chamber housing the main gate. The swirling portal pulsed with blue-black energy, somehow looking more stable than when Naruto had first seen it days ago. The gates respond to you, Esil explained, noticing his observation. Your awakening is strengthening the connections between realms. Is that good or bad? Both. It allows easier travel for those with purpose, but also for threats. She gestured to the gate. This isn't our destination, merely our starting point. From here, we'll transition to the shadow path. Naruto nodded, turning to the guards. Once we're through, seal this chamber. Don't open it for anyone but me. Yes, sir, the captain responded, having been briefed on the importance of the mission. With no further ceremony, Naruto and Esil stepped through the gate. The transition was smoother this time, Naruto's awakened powers making the dimensional shift almost natural. They emerged not in the Hunter World's facility as he expected, but in a strange, twilight landscape, a forest of crystalline trees that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Where are we? Naruto asked, looking around. A boundary realm, Esil replied. One of many that exist between major dimensions. From here, we can access the true shadow path. She pointed to a darker section of the forest ahead. There. Where the shadows run deepest. They moved through the crystalline forest, each step bringing them into deeper darkness. The air grew colder, heavier, charged with potential. Now, Esil said when they reached a clearing darker than the rest, you must open the way. Only the Shadow Monarch can create a path to the castle. Naruto hesitated. How? You know how. Esil's black eyes met his. The memory is there. Trust yourself. Taking a deep breath, Naruto closed his eyes, reaching into the recovered memories. The knowledge surfaced immediately, ancient words, gestures of power that had once been as natural as breathing. He extended his hands, shadows gathering around them like living smoke. By shadow and soul, by death and rebirth, I claim the path that is mine by right. Open. The darkness before them split like a curtain being torn, revealing a tunnel of pure shadow that seemed to stretch into infinity. The shadow path, Esil whispered reverently. Untraveled since your fall. Naruto stepped forward, feeling the pull of the darkness. It wasn't threatening but welcoming, recognizing him, responding to him. How long will the journey take? Time has no meaning on this path. We will arrive when the castle is ready to receive you. With those cryptic words, they entered the shadow tunnel. The darkness closed around them, complete and absolute, yet Naruto found he could see perfectly, not with his eyes but with his shadow sense, perceiving shapes and movements through connections to the darkness itself. They walked for what seemed like hours, the tunnel unchanging. Occasionally, Naruto glimpsed things in the shadows, faces, figures, echoes of beings that existed in this twilight realm. None approached them, all retreating from the presence of the Shadow Monarch. They fear you, Esil observed. As they should. I don't want fear, Naruto replied. Respect, yes. Obedience when necessary. But not fear. A king without fear is vulnerable. A king without respect is just a tyrant. Naruto's voice was firm. That was Ashborn's mistake. He ruled through compulsion, not covenant. Esil smiled slightly. You truly have changed. The Shadow Monarch I served before was powerful, just, but, colder. More distant. Well, being born human will do that to you, Naruto said wryly. Some changes are for the better. The tunnel suddenly widened, opening into a vast space filled with swirling shadow mist. And through that mist, a structure began to take form, a castle of impossible proportions, towers spiraling up beyond sight, walls that seemed to be made of solidified darkness. The Shadow Castle, Esil breathed. The true throne of the monarch. Naruto stared at the structure, memories flooding back stronger than ever. He had built this place, stone by shadow stone, as a sanctuary for his army, a seat of power from which to maintain balance between realms. They approached the massive gates, which bore a symbol Naruto recognized instantly, his own crest, the mark of the primordial Shadow Monarch, similar to but distinct from the symbol Ashborn later adopted. How do we get in? Naruto asked, seeing no handles, no obvious mechanism. You command it, Esil replied simply. The castle answers only to you. Naruto reached out, placing his hand on the gate. Open, he commanded. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, with a sound like a mountain sighing, the massive gates swung inward, revealing a vast courtyard beyond. As they entered, Naruto felt a surge of power, his connection to the shadows strengthening exponentially within the castle's bounds. The courtyard was lined with shadow soldiers, hundreds of them, standing at perfect attention. Not the soldiers he had created recently, but older, more powerful shadows that had waited here since his fall. As one, they knelt, weapons lowered in salute to their returning king. They've been waiting, Esil said softly. Loyal to you alone, they refused Ashborn's commands and retreated here when you fell. Naruto approached the nearest soldier, touching its shoulder. The shadow seemed to shudder under his touch, then raised its head. My king, it said, voice echoing strangely. You have returned. I have, Naruto confirmed. Rise. All of you. The shadow army stood as one, awaiting orders. The castle's core, Naruto said to Esil. That's where we need to go. She nodded, following as he led the way through the courtyard, into the main structure of the castle. Inside was a labyrinth of hallways, chambers, and staircases that would have been impossible to navigate without the memories now guiding him. They passed through grand halls lined with artifacts of shadow magic, training grounds where shadow soldiers had honed their skills, and libraries containing knowledge from across dimensions. Everything was preserved perfectly, untouched by time in this realm outside normal reality. Finally, they reached the heart of the castle, a circular chamber dominated by a throne of crystallized shadow. Behind it, a massive window overlooked not a landscape but a view of multiple realms simultaneously. Naruto could see Konoha, the hunter world's soul, and several other dimensions, all overlapping like transparent layers. The Monarch's view, Esil explained. From here, you can observe all connected realms. Naruto approached the throne cautiously. This was it, the seat of power he had once occupied, the position he had sacrificed to protect humanity. Taking it again would cement his status as the Shadow Monarch reborn, would connect him fully to the shadow system across all dimensions. But it would also make him a target, for Ashborn, for the other monarchs, for anyone who feared what the Shadow Monarch represented. What happens if I sit there, he asked. Your connection to the shadow system becomes complete, Esil replied. You gain full access to your original powers, full authority over all shadows, including those currently bound to Ashborn or Jinwoo. And the cost? Esil hesitated. Your human limitations fall away. You become more shadow than flesh, more monarch than man. The price was steep. Naruto stared at the throne, conflicted. He needed the power to face Ashborn, to protect both worlds from the coming war. But at what cost to his humanity? There must be another way, he said finally. A middle path. There isn't, Esil started to say, but stopped when Naruto raised his hand. There is. Because I'm making one. He approached the throne but didn't sit. Instead, he placed his hands on the armrests, channeling his shadow power into the crystalline structure. The covenant was never about the throne itself. It was about the bond between monarch and shadows, between death and purpose. The throne began to glow with blue-black energy, responding to his touch, his intent. I am Naruto Uzumaki, he declared, voice resonating with power. I am also the primordial shadow monarch. But I will not choose between these identities. I will hold both, balance both, be both. The energy pulsed brighter, the throne beginning to transform under his hands, the crystalline structure softening, reshaping itself. By shadow and soul, by chakra and will, I remake the covenant, Naruto continued, the words coming to him naturally. Not as master and servant, not as king and subject, but as partners in purpose. To protect, to balance, to preserve life across all realms. The throne shuddered, then split, not breaking but dividing, becoming two seats where once there had been one. One remained shadow crystal, dark and ancient. The other formed from what looked like solidified light, bearing symbols reminiscent of Konoha, of the ninja world. Impossible, Esil whispered. The throne cannot be changed. It is the fixed point of the shadow system. Nothing is fixed, Naruto replied. Not thrones, not systems, not fates. He sat on the shadow throne, feeling power surge through him, but not the overwhelming transformation Esil had warned of. His humanity remained intact, balanced by the dual nature of the throne he had created. The monarch's view window shifted, the overlapping realms coming into sharper focus. And in one of them, the hunter world, Naruto saw movement. Armies gathering. Gates opening en masse. And at the center, a familiar figure directing it all. Ashborn, Naruto said, standing quickly. He knows. He's making his move. How? Esil asked, alarmed. The castle is shielded from his awareness. Not anymore. Not since I changed the covenant. Naruto studied the scene playing out in the window. He's opening gates everywhere, connecting all the major dimensions at once. Why? To draw me out. To force a confrontation before I'm ready. Naruto's expression hardened. And to threaten what I care about if I don't respond. Through the viewing window, he could see gates opening across Konoha, across the ninja world. Could see monsters pouring through, shadow armies marching. And in Seoul, Jinwoo mobilizing in response, unaware that he was playing into Ashborn's hands. We need to return, Naruto said, turning from the throne. Now. But the castle, your army, Esil protested. Will follow when called. Naruto strode toward the chamber exit. The next battle won't be fought here in the Shadow Realm. It will be fought in the world's Ashborn is threatening. They retraced their steps through the castle, faster now, urgency driving them. The shadow soldiers stood at attention as they passed, awaiting orders. Be ready, Naruto commanded them. When I call, come. At the main gate, Naruto paused, turning back to look at the castle, his power base, his inheritance. He would return, but first, he had worlds to save. Open a path, he ordered the shadows. To Konoha. To the main gate facility. The darkness swirled, forming a tunnel similar to the one that had brought them here. Without hesitation, Naruto stepped through, Esil right behind him. The transition was instantaneous, one moment in the timeless Shadow Realm, the next back in the gate facility in Konoha. But the scene that greeted them was chaos. The facility was damaged, signs of battle everywhere. Bodies of both guards and strange creatures littered the floor. Alarms blared, and in the distance, explosions could be heard. What happened? Naruto demanded of a surviving guard who was tending to wounded comrades. Gates, the shinobi gasped. Dozens of them, all over the village. Monsters coming through faster than we can contain them. The Hokage ordered full evacuation of civilians. How long have we been gone? Almost 2 days, sir. 2 days. In the Shadow Realm, it had felt like hours. Time dilation, just as Esil had warned. Where's Hae-In? Naruto asked. The hunter who was here. Fighting near the academy with Kakashi-sensei. Trying to hold off some kind of Shadow Knights. Shadow Knights. Ashborn's elite troops. The situation was worse than he'd feared. Esil, with me, Naruto ordered, heading for the exit. We need to reach the academy. They emerged into a village under siege. Gates hung in the sky like dark wounds, monsters of various types rampaging through streets strewn with debris. Shinobi fought valiantly, but they were outnumbered and facing creatures they had no experience combating. Naruto didn't hesitate. Drawing on his fully awakened powers, he extended his shadow across the street, forming a dozen shadow soldiers instantly. Protect the civilians, he commanded them. Focus on evacuation. The soldiers moved with perfect coordination, engaging monsters while shepherding trapped villagers toward safety zones. Naruto and Esil raced toward the academy, encountering more battles along the way. Each time, Naruto deployed shadows to assist, never breaking stride. His awareness had expanded exponentially since claiming the throne. He could feel every shadow in Konoha, could sense the location of every fight, every threat. They reached the academy to find it partially destroyed. In the courtyard, Kakashi and Hae-In fought back-to-back against 6 Shadow Knights, elite warriors in black armor wielding massive swords. Despite their skill, both defenders were clearly exhausted, wounded, on the verge of being overwhelmed. Enough. Naruto's voice carried power that rippled through the air. The Shadow Knights paused, turning toward the new arrival. Naruto stepped forward, his own shadow expanding around him like a cloak. You serve Ashborn. But before him, you served me. Remember. The knights hesitated, weapons lowering slightly. Naruto. Hae-In called, relief and worry mingling in her voice. Behind you. He turned just as a new gate opened directly above the courtyard. From it descended a figure Naruto recognized instantly from his recovered memories, tall, clad in ornate shadow armor, radiating power that dwarfed even the knights. Ashborn. Not in his true form, but a projection, powerful enough to act in this realm without fully manifesting. So, Ashborn's voice echoed metallically from within his helmet. The pretender returns. The fallen king seeks to reclaim his throne. Not a pretender, Naruto replied steadily. The original. The one you betrayed. Kakashi and Hae-In had retreated to a safer position, watching the confrontation with tense readiness. Esil stood aside as well, knowing this was a battle between monarchs. Betrayal implies loyalty was deserved, Ashborn said dismissively. You would have doomed us all with your sentimentality for these humans. I saved the Shadow Realm by taking what you were too weak to properly wield. And yet here I stand, Naruto countered. Reborn, remembered, reclaiming what was mine. Temporarily. Ashborn gestured, and the gates above Konoha pulsed brighter. This village, this world, they're just the beginning. Every realm connected to the shadow system will suffer until you surrender what you've stolen. I've stolen nothing. The throne, the castle, the covenant, they were always mine. The covenant? Ashborn laughed, a cold, metallic sound. That outdated notion died with your first incarnation. Shadows serve. They do not partner. They obey. They do not choose. That's where you've always been wrong. Naruto's voice remained calm, but power built around him, shadows gathering. And that's why you'll lose. Again. Ashborn attacked without further warning, shadow spears manifesting and launching toward Naruto with blinding speed. They never reached their target. Naruto's shadow rose, forming a shield that absorbed the attack completely. My turn, Naruto said, and countered with his own shadow weapons, not spears but chains that whipped toward Ashborn from multiple directions. The usurper monarch deflected most but was caught by two, the shadow bindings wrapping around his arms. He snarled, power flaring to break free. You've grown stronger in this incarnation, Ashborn acknowledged. But you're still bound by human limitations. Still weakened by human connections. He gestured again, and new gates opened, smaller, targeted. One directly above where Kakashi stood, another over Hae-In. Shadow hands reached through, grabbing for them. Naruto's concentration split, his shadow extending to protect his friends. Ashborn seized the opportunity, breaking free of the chains and launching a more powerful attack, a wave of shadow energy that slammed into Naruto, sending him crashing through the academy wall. Predictable, Ashborn mocked. Always sacrificing power for sentiment. Naruto rose from the rubble, dust falling from his shoulders. But instead of looking weakened, he smiled. Not sacrificing. Strengthening. His shadow expanded suddenly, covering the entire courtyard. And from it rose not just soldiers but an army, hundreds of shadow warriors in formations Ashborn recognized all too well. The castle guards, Ashborn said, a hint of uncertainty entering his voice. You reached the castle. I didn't just reach it, Naruto replied. I changed it. Remade the covenant. And they remember who their true king is. The shadow army moved as one, surrounding Ashborn. Not attacking yet, but ready, waiting for their monarch's command. This projection of yours, Naruto continued, stepping closer. It's impressive. Almost as powerful as your real form. But ultimately limited, isn't it? You can't fully manifest in this realm without destabilizing the shadow system you've built. Ashborn's silence confirmed the assessment. So here's what happens next, Naruto said. You withdraw. Close the gates. End this attack. Or I will come to you, in the shadow realm, with my full army. And we'll finish what we started centuries ago. You wouldn't, Ashborn growled. A direct conflict between monarchs would tear reality apart. Damage every connected realm. I would if you force my hand. Naruto's expression hardened. I'll protect these worlds, Ashborn. Whatever it takes. That hasn't changed. A tense silence fell over the courtyard. Ashborn calculating, weighing options. Naruto unwavering, his shadow army ready for his command. Finally, Ashborn laughed again, but the sound was different now. Less mocking, more genuinely amused. You truly haven't changed, have you? Still willing to risk everything for these fragile beings. He stepped back, his form already beginning to fade. This isn't over. The other monarchs are awakening too. They remember what you did, how you opposed them. And this time, you won't face me alone. I won't be alone either, Naruto replied. With those final words hanging between them, Ashborn disappeared, his projection dissolving into shadow particles that returned to the gate above. One by one, the gates across Konoha began to close, the invasion forces withdrawing as suddenly as they had arrived. As the immediate threat receded, Naruto turned to check on his friends. Hae-In was helping Kakashi stand, both injured but alive. Esil approached from where she had been observing the confrontation. That was unexpected, the demon said. Ashborn rarely retreats. He didn't retreat, Naruto corrected. He's regrouping. Planning. This was just the opening move. But we won this round, Hae-In said, joining them. For now. Naruto's shadow army still stood at attention around them, awaiting orders. With a gesture, he dismissed most of them, keeping only a small contingent for cleanup and protection. We need to prepare for what comes next. Ashborn won't stay in the Shadow Realm for long. And the other monarchs he mentioned? Kakashi asked, wincing slightly from his injuries. An even bigger problem. If they're truly awakening. Naruto trailed off, the implications too concerning to voice fully. First things first, Hae-In said practically. We secure Konoha, tend to the wounded, then plan our next steps. Naruto nodded agreement. Esil, help coordinate the shadow soldiers with the village defenses. Focus on sealing any remaining gates and eliminating straggler monsters. The demon bowed slightly. As you command, my king. As she departed to carry out his orders, Naruto turned to Hae-In. You're hurt. I've had worse. But she didn't protest when he gently examined the gash on her arm. You fought well, he said softly. Thank you for protecting the academy. The children. Just doing my job as a hunter. But her eyes told a different story, concern, relief, something deeper developing between them. Kakashi cleared his throat. I should report to Lady Tsunade. Let her know you've returned and the immediate threat has passed. As he limped away, leaving them alone amidst the rubble, Naruto finally asked the question that had been bothering him. The Hunter Association. Did they send help when the gates opened? Hae-In's expression darkened. Some. A small contingent arrived yesterday. But the chairman, he's being cautious. Political. Meaning? Meaning he's waiting to see which shadow monarch emerges victorious before committing fully. Her frustration was evident. I came back against orders. Couldn't just leave you all to face this alone. The admission touched him deeply. Thank you. For choosing this side. Not this side, she corrected. Your side. Their eyes met, understanding passing between them. But before either could speak further, the ground trembled beneath their feet, not an earthquake but something else. A disturbance in reality itself. Naruto looked up to see a new gate forming above Konoha, larger than any before, swirling with colors beyond the usual blue-black energy. This wasn't Ashborn's work. This was something else entirely. What is that? Hae-In asked, hand going to her sword. Trouble, Naruto replied grimly. Big trouble. From the gate emerged a light so bright it was almost painful to look at directly. And within that light, a figure descended, humanoid but clearly not human, its body seemingly composed of radiance given form. A light monarch, Esil said, returning quickly at the disturbance. They're coming sooner than expected. The light being hovered above the village center, its voice booming across Konoha like thunder. Shadow Monarch. Face me. Stay here, Naruto ordered his companions. This is beyond even Shadow Knights. You can't face a light monarch alone, Hae-In protested. I won't be alone. Naruto summoned his shadow army again, hundreds materializing around him. And I'm not just the Shadow Monarch anymore. I'm also Naruto Uzumaki of the Hidden Leaf. And we don't abandon our village to invaders. Before they could argue further, he moved toward the village center, his shadow army following in perfect formation. Citizens who had begun emerging from shelters after Ashborn's retreat now hurried back to safety, sensing the new, perhaps greater threat. Naruto reached the main square to find the Light Monarch waiting, hovering several meters above the ground. Up close, its form was even more alien, vaguely humanoid but composed of shifting patterns of light that hurt to look at directly. "Shadow King," it boomed. "You have returned. The covenant is broken." "The covenant is changed," Naruto corrected, standing firm below the radiant being. "Not broken. Improved. Impossible. The balance must be maintained. Humanity must be contained." "Humanity will be protected," Naruto countered. "By me. By the shadows. By anyone who values life in all its forms." The Light Monarch pulsed brighter with what might have been anger. "You betray your purpose. Again. The monarchs ruled together until your defection. We ruled together until you decided humans were expendable," Naruto replied, memories of ancient debates, ancient conflicts surfacing. "I didn't betray my purpose. I honored it. Balance includes humanity, not excludes it. Then war returns. As it must." The Light Monarch raised its arms, and beams of searing radiance shot toward Naruto. His shadows rose to intercept, forming barriers that absorbed some of the attack, but not all. Pain lanced through him as light energy burned against his shadow essence. But Naruto was more than just shadows now. He called on his other power source, chakra, the energy of life itself. The familiar feeling of Sage Mode activated, nature energy balancing the shadow power within him. Orange pigmentation appeared around his eyes, even as they remained filled with shadow essence, a visual representation of the dual nature he now embodied. The next attack from the Light Monarch met a different defense, not just shadow barriers but chakra constructs, Rasengan spheres that intercepted the light beams and dispersed them. "What is this?" the Light Monarch demanded, its thunderous voice showing the first hint of uncertainty. "What power do you wield?" "One you know," Naruto answered, shadow soldiers forming around him. "And one you don't." A Rasengan formed in his hand, infused with shadow essence, creating a swirling orb of balanced energies. He launched himself upward with chakra-enhanced strength, shadow platforms forming mid-air to give him footing as he ascended to the monarch's level. The Rasengan struck before the light being could dodge, connecting with its radiant form. The resulting explosion sent shock waves across Konoha, buildings trembling from the force. Both Naruto and the Light Monarch were thrown back, though Naruto's shadow cushioned his landing. The light being recovered quickly, its form dimmer but still powerful. "Impressive. You have evolved. But so have we." It gestured upward, and the gate above pulsed. Two more figures began to descend, another Light Monarch, and something else, something Naruto recognized from his ancient memories. "The Beast Monarch," he muttered. "One of the most physically powerful of the monarchs, ruler of monstrous creatures across dimensions." This was bad. One monarch he could handle, even in his still adapting state. 3 would be nearly impossible. But before the newcomers could fully emerge, something unexpected happened. A new presence entered the battlefield, a familiar one. Jinwoo, the current Shadow Monarch, stepped through a smaller gate that opened near the square. His shadow army deployed instantly, taking up positions alongside Naruto's forces. "Looks like you could use some help," Jinwoo said, approaching. "Unless you'd prefer to face 3 monarchs alone." Naruto stared in surprise. "I thought you'd be on their side. Or Ashborn's." "I thought so too," Jinwoo replied with a small smile. "Until I learned the truth about the system. About what Ashborn did." His expression hardened. No one manipulates me. Not even the being who gave me these powers. Before Naruto could respond, the Light Monarch attacked again, this time aiming for Jinwoo. Both shadow wielders raised defenses simultaneously, their shadows merging seamlessly to block the assault. Truce. Jinwoo asked, shadow soldiers already moving to engage the Light Monarch. Truce, Naruto agreed. For now. Together, they launched a counterattack. Jinwoo's shadow striking from below while Naruto combined chakra and shadow techniques to attack from above. The Light Monarch found itself caught between two types of shadow assault, unable to focus on either opponent fully. Meanwhile, the other monarchs had fully emerged from the gate. The second light being joined the battle immediately, while the Beast Monarch, a massive, hulking figure with aspects of various predatory creatures, landed with enough force to crack the square beneath it. I'll take the Beast Monarch, Naruto called to Jinwoo. You handle the light beings. Are you sure? The Beast Monarch is an old acquaintance, Naruto finished, memories of previous encounters surfacing. Trust me. They separated, each focusing on their targets. Jinwoo's shadow army engaged the Light Monarchs with disciplined precision, while Naruto confronted the Beast Monarch directly. Shadow King, the beast rumbled, voice deeper than the light beings but no less powerful. You remember me. I remember all of you, Naruto replied. And how this ended last time? With your fall. Your failure. With a stalemate, Naruto corrected. One that preserved humanity. And will again. The Beast Monarch charged, moving with impossible speed for something so large. Naruto dodged, not with shadow but with the ninja techniques ingrained since childhood. The beast's massive claws tore through the space he had occupied a split second earlier. Naruto countered with a combination attack, shadow chains to restrict the monarch's movement while he formed a Raisin Shuriken infused with shadow essence. The chains wrapped around the beast's limbs, momentarily slowing it enough for Naruto to launch his attack. The Raisin Shuriken hit with devastating force, exploding into a maelstrom of wind blades and shadow particles. The Beast Monarch roared in pain, its form sustaining visible damage for the first time. But the victory was short-lived. Breaking free of the weakened chains, the beast counterattacked with renewed fury, catching Naruto with a glancing blow that sent him crashing through a nearby building. You have grown weaker in your human vessel, the Beast Monarch taunted. The Shadow King I fought before would not bleed so easily. Naruto rose from the rubble, blood trickling from a gash on his forehead. The Shadow King you fought before didn't have this, he replied, forming a familiar cross-shaped hand sign. Shadow Clone Jutsu. Dozens of Narutos appeared, each commanding their own shadow constructs. The Beast Monarch found itself suddenly facing not one opponent but an army, each clone attacking from a different angle, each wielding both chakra and shadow techniques. Meanwhile, Jinwoo was holding his own against the Light Monarchs, his mastery of shadow combat evident in every move. His shadow soldiers engaged one monarch while he personally battled the other, his speed and precision keeping the Radiant being on the defensive. Across Konoha, other battles raged. Kakashi and Tsunade led the village's defense against lesser monsters that had followed the monarchs through the gate. Hae-In coordinated with the few hunter reinforcements who had arrived, focusing on protecting civilian evacuation routes. And somewhere in the chaos, Esil fought alongside the shadow soldiers, her demonic abilities proving effective against the light being's minions. The conflict escalated, power against power, realm against realm. Buildings crumbled under the force of monarchs clashing. Reality itself seemed to warp in places where the most intense fighting occurred. Naruto, having momentarily gained the upper hand against the Beast Monarch with his clone tactics, spotted Jinwoo being driven back by the combined assault of both Light Monarchs. The current Shadow Monarch was powerful, but even he had limits. Making a split-second decision, Naruto left his clones to continue engaging the beast while he moved to assist Jinwoo. He arrived just as a light beam punched through Jinwoo's shadow defense, striking him in the shoulder. Need a hand? Naruto called, shadow barriers rising to block the next attack. Jinwoo grimaced, hand pressed to his wounded shoulder. Thought you had the beast under control. My clones do, for now. Naruto positioned himself beside the other shadow wielder. We need to end this quickly, before the village is completely destroyed. Suggestions? Naruto considered their options. The light monarchs were powerful but seemed to be maintaining a connection to their gate, limiting their full manifestation in this realm. If that connection could be severed, or better yet, reversed. The gate, he said. We need to turn it against them. Jinwoo followed his gaze upward. How? Gates respond to the monarchs who create them. Not just to them. Naruto's expression turned determined. To the shadow monarch as well. The original one. Understanding dawned in Jinwoo's eyes. You can control the gate. Not alone. But together? Maybe. They shared a look, mutual respect developing despite their previous antagonism. Then, as one, they raised their hands toward the massive gate still swirling above Konoha. By shadow and authority, by covenant and right, Naruto began, ancient words of power flowing naturally. By system and succession, by trial and conquest, Jinwoo continued, his own connection to the shadow system adding to the building energy. We claim this gate, they finished together. Reverse its flow. Return what came through unbidden. For a moment, nothing happened. The light monarchs, sensing what they were attempting, attacked with renewed ferocity. The beast monarch, having dispatched the last of Naruto's clones, charged toward them with earth-shaking steps. Then, slowly at first but with increasing speed, the gate began to change. Its swirling energies reversed direction, creating a powerful suction effect. The light beings were the first affected, their forms drawn upward toward the gate despite their struggles to resist. No, one thundered. This cannot be. It is, Naruto replied, maintaining his focus on the gate despite the strain. This realm is under our protection now. Both of us. The beast monarch fought harder against the pull, its massive claws digging into the ground for purchase. But the combined will of two shadow monarchs proved stronger. Inch by inch, it was lifted from the ground, drawn inexorably toward the gate. This is not over, it roared as it was pulled through. The war has only begun. With a final flash of light, all three monarchs disappeared back through the gate, which collapsed upon itself immediately after, leaving only a fading ripple in the sky above Konoha. Silence fell over the battlefield, broken only by the distant sounds of smaller conflicts being resolved across the village. Naruto and Jinwoo stood side by side, both exhausted from the immense effort of controlling and reversing the gate. So, Jinwoo said finally. I guess we need to talk. Yeah, Naruto agreed. We do. Before they could continue, others began arriving, Tsunade and Kakashi approaching from one direction, Hae-In and Esil from another. All looked battle-worn but relieved at the monarch's retreat. Is it over? Tsunade asked, surveying the devastated village square. For now, Naruto replied. But they'll be back. And in greater numbers. Which means we need to be ready, Jinwoo added. All of us. This isn't just a shadow conflict anymore. It's a dimensional war. Tsunade's eyes narrowed slightly. And where do you stand in this war? Last I heard, you were a potential enemy. Jinwoo's expression remained neutral. I was misled. About the origin of my powers, about Ashborn's true nature. He glanced at Naruto. I've seen enough today to know which side I should be on. The side of humanity, Naruto clarified. Against all monarchs who would threaten it. All? Hae-In questioned. Including Ashborn? Especially Ashborn, Jinwoo confirmed. His manipulation ends now. As they talked, shadow soldiers continued their work throughout the village, helping with rescue efforts, securing damaged areas, eliminating any remaining hostile creatures. The sight of Naruto's and Jinwoo's shadows working alongside Konoha shinobi symbolized the alliance forming between their powers, their worlds. We need a council, Tsunade decided. Representatives from all affected realms. To coordinate defense, share intelligence, prepare for the next attack. The Hunter Association will resist, Hae-In warned. The chairman prefers autonomy. The chairman will adapt, Jinwoo said firmly. Or be replaced. The stakes are too high for political games now. Naruto, listening to the discussion, felt a strange sense of déjà vu. Centuries ago, he had tried to forge similar alliances against the Monarch's threat. Had failed then, due to betrayal and division. This time would be different. Had to be. We'll establish the council immediately, Tsunade continued. Starting with those already involved, Konoha, the Hunter Association, and... She glanced at Esil questioningly. The demon realm, Esil supplied with a sharp-toothed smile. We have our own stake in this conflict. And resources others lack. 3 realms to start, then, Tsunade nodded. More as we identify them. As the discussion continued, Naruto stepped away slightly, looking out over the damaged village. Konoha had suffered greatly today, but it would rebuild. It always did. The will of fire ensured that. Hae-In joined him, standing close enough that their shoulders almost touched. You did it, she said softly. You faced 3 monarchs and won. Not alone, Naruto corrected. Never alone. That's the difference this time. That's why we'll win. Her hand found his, fingers intertwining. What happens now? Between worlds, between us? Naruto turned to face her fully. That depends on whether S-rank hunters date shadow monarchs. A smile touched her lips. I don't know. It's unprecedented. I'm good with unprecedented. His free hand rose to touch her cheek gently. In fact, I specialize in it. Their moment was interrupted by Jinwoo clearing his throat. We need to discuss the shadow system, he said, approaching them. How it will work with 2 monarchs. Do we need to decide that now? Naruto asked, reluctantly dropping his hand from Hae-In's face. No, Jinwoo conceded. But soon. The shadows need clear leadership. Especially with Ashborn still active in the shadow realm. Naruto nodded. The dual throne in the castle. It might offer a solution, a shared system, balanced between us. Shared power. Jinwoo sounded skeptical. That's rarely stable. Better than fighting each other while greater threats gather, Naruto countered. We're stronger together. Today proved that. After a moment's consideration, Jinwoo nodded. We'll try it your way. For now. As the current Shadow Monarch walked away to speak with Tsunade, Esil approached, her expression unusually serious. My king, she said quietly. The Light Monarch's appearance changes everything. They rarely intervene directly unless they're planning something bigger, Naruto finished. I know. What could be bigger than this? Hae-In asked, gesturing to the devastation around them. The complete reset of all connected realms, Esil replied grimly. A purge of what they consider disharmony, mainly humanity and its offshoots. Can they do that? Hae-In's voice held disbelief. Together? With enough preparation? Naruto's expression darkened. Yes. That's what they were planning before, when I first opposed them. When Ashborn betrayed me. Then we stopped them, Hae-In said simply. Whatever it takes. Her determination, her unflinching support despite the cosmic scale of the threat, touched something in Naruto. Without overthinking it, he leaned forward and kissed her, briefly but with unmistakable feeling. When he pulled back, her eyes were wide with surprise, a blush coloring her cheeks. What was that for? For believing. In me. In us. In the possibility of winning against impossible odds. Her surprise melted into a small smile. Well. If that's all it takes to get kissed by the Shadow Monarch, should believe in impossible things more often. Esil rolled her eyes, but there was fondness beneath her exasperation. If you two are quite finished, there's a war council forming that might benefit from the Shadow Monarch's presence. Naruto grinned, the expression pure Naruto Uzumaki despite the shadow power visibly flowing around him. Right. Saving the world first, romance second. Got it. As they rejoined the others, plans already forming for defense, counterattack, and alliance building, Naruto felt something he hadn't experienced in either of his lives, a perfect balance. Between shadow and light, between monarch and human, between ancient power and newfound connections. The war ahead would be unlike any fought before. Monarchs against monarchs, realms against realms, the very fabric of existence at stake. But for the first time, the Shadow Monarch wouldn't stand alone. And that, Naruto knew, would make all the difference. 1 month later, the council chamber in the newly constructed interdimensional facility hummed with activity. Representatives from 7 realms now sat around the massive table: Konoha, the Hunter Association, the Demon Realm, and 4 others discovered through careful gate exploration. Naruto, seated at the head of the table beside Jinwoo, studied the tactical displays showing gate activity across all connected dimensions. The patterns were concerning: increasing frequency, coordinated openings suggesting the monarchs were testing defenses, probing for weaknesses. The eastern quadrant saw 3 new incursions yesterday, Kakashi reported, pointing to markers on the display. All contained, but they're getting bolder. The same in Seoul, Hae-In added. She now served as the official Hunter Association liaison, having been promoted after the chairman recognized the inevitability of cooperation. S-rank gates opening in populated areas rather than the usual remote locations. They're trying to force us to spread our resources thin, Jinwoo observed. Classic containment strategy. Then we change the game, Naruto said, rising from his seat. We take the fight to them. The suggestion caused murmurs around the table. No one had yet attempted to breach the monarch's home realms, the risk was considered too great. You're talking about a direct assault? Tsunade asked skeptically. Against beings who nearly destroyed Konoha a month ago. Not an assault. A reconnaissance. Naruto moved to the main display, highlighting several unusual gate patterns. These energy signatures suggest instability in the barriers between our realms and theirs. Points where we might insert small teams to gather intelligence, disrupt their preparations. High risk, the Demon Realm representative noted, not Esil, who now served as Naruto's advisor, but a higher-ranking demon lord. But potentially high reward. I'll lead the first team, Naruto said. Jinwoo the second. As Shadow Monarchs, we have the best chance of navigating hostile realms undetected. The discussion continued, strategies debated, risks assessed. Throughout, Naruto found his gaze occasionally meeting Hae-In's across the table. Their relationship had deepened over the past month, growing stronger as they worked side by side in both war preparations and the quieter moments between crises. Later, as the council adjourned for the day, they walked together through the facility's upper level, which offered views of all connected realms simultaneously, a smaller version of the monarch's view in the Shadow Castle. You didn't mention the dream, Hae-In said quietly. The vision from the castle. Naruto sighed. He should have known she would notice the omission. No point worrying everyone about something we can't confirm yet. But you believe it's real? The weapon the monarchs are building? Yes. His expression grew somber. A device capable of severing all connections between realms permanently, trapping each in isolation, unable to receive help when the monarchs attack individually. Divide and conquer, Hae-In summarized. Exactly. And without the shadow paths to reconnect them. Each realm would fall alone. She finished his thought, as she often did these days. Then we have to stop it. Before it's completed. We will. Naruto turned to face her fully. That's why I need to lead the reconnaissance mission. I need to confirm the weapon's location, its progress. Hae-In studied his face for a moment, then nodded. When do we leave? This isn't a hunter mission, Hae-In. It's, if you say, too dangerous, I might have to hurt you, she interrupted, a challenging glint in her eye. I'm going. The only question is whether I go with your blessing or without it. Naruto laughed despite the seriousness of the situation. Has anyone ever told you you're incredibly stubborn? Says the man who spent his childhood shouting about becoming Hokage to anyone who would listen. Fair point. His smile faded slightly. Tomorrow morning. Small team, you, me, Esil as our guide, and Kakashi for his tactical expertise. Perfect. She stepped closer, lowering her voice. And tonight? Tonight, Naruto replied, his hand finding hers, we remember what we're fighting for. As they left the viewing deck, heading toward the quarters they now shared, Naruto reflected on how much had changed in so short a time. 2 months ago, he had been simply Naruto Uzumaki, Jonin of Konoha. Now he was that and so much more, the primordial Shadow Monarch reborn, co-ruler of the Shadow Realm alongside Jinwoo, defender of multiple worlds against cosmic threats. And somehow, improbably, happier than he'd ever been. Because this time, unlike his first incarnation, the Shadow Monarch was not alone. He had friends, allies, comrades. He had Hae-In. He had a purpose that aligned perfectly with who he had always been, a protector, a unifier, someone who refused to accept that peace was impossible. Tomorrow would bring new dangers, new challenges in a war that was still just beginning. The monarchs were gathering strength. Ashborn was planning his counterattack. The light beings were building their reality-severing weapon. Threats on a scale beyond anything the connected realms had faced before. But tonight, in this moment of hard-won peace, Naruto chose to focus on the victory already achieved, not just over external enemies, but over the false choice that had haunted him since his powers began to awaken. He didn't have to choose between being the Shadow Monarch and being Naruto Uzumaki. He could be both. Would be both. And that dual nature, that balanced existence between shadow and humanity, might just be the key to saving everything. Stop thinking so loudly, Hae-In chided gently as they reached their quarters. The worlds will still need saving tomorrow. Naruto smiled, pushing thoughts of monarchs and wars aside for the moment. You're right. Tonight is ours. As the door closed behind them, shadows curled protectively around the facility, Naruto's unconscious power maintaining vigilance even as he allowed himself this brief respite. Outside, gates continued to flicker in the space between dimensions, signs of the conflicts to come. But within, the Shadow Monarch had found something his first incarnation had never known, something worth fighting for beyond abstract ideals of balance and order. He had found home. The end. Thank you for watching this video. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel and like this video.